I see dead people.
Hot shit.
Here's Johnny.
Stop.
We have such sights to show you.
Bring the motherfucking ruckus. Fuck you too.
So, this is just gonna be like a brief little interview type of thing, just because I like to talk to randos who like found the show and see how they, what stories we have to tell. And the reason I'm doing this is not just because you're a Patreon subscriber, but also because you obviously have a lot of similar interests that I have, and you talk to me about a lot of really cool shit. So I like to have these little moments with like fan interactions where I could be like, look at the people we find, look at the things that we're capable of. And I don't know, have you listened to the episode where I introduce Kitty?
Yeah, that was like a long time. I'm at 250 something.
So that was the first time I had ever really like talked to a complete rando on the show before, because even people like Glitch Blob, like I had talked to him online before and we had played games and stuff together. So it wasn't like the very first interaction we had. Kitty was very similar, where like she would just reach out to me and talk to me, over I think Facebook, like over the Lotsa Pasta Facebook for like a while. And that's how we got to chatting about things, and that's how I got her on the show. So this is going to be like the first step to possibly integrating you into doing something more, if that's something that you're interested in. But as far as like just starting things off with like a nice interaction before the 300th special that's coming up that I'm doing with a lot of people. I wanted to have a solo episode for $2.99 that's coming out in like 2 weeks, and I think that this would be like a really nice opening. So yeah, let me open this back up. Holy shit! Look who it is. It's Barbara Manatee.
Barbara Manatee.
Manatee. I love that that's where your name came from. Like I like that that's what you chose. And I think it's fair that you could tell the story of how you came across that for those who might not fucking know.
Oh, well, so I was deep into church when I was in like middle school and high school.
We all been there. Yeah.
Right. And whenever we went on like, youth retreats or whatever, whenever we came back, we all sat in the youth room and we watched VeggieTales. And Barbara Manatee is one of Billy's songs with Larry, and I fucking love all of those songs.
And it stuck with you.
Yes. It's the greatest thing ever. I want to get a Barbara Manatee tattooed onto me. I will at some point.
What would the tattoo consist of? Like a very realistic cucumber, like riding on top of a very realistic manatee?
No. It's literally going to be Larry the cucumber holding a stuffed manatee.
A stuffed animal of Barbara.
Yeah, that she's going to have like a bow on her head or something. And people who know will know. And
then if underneath it, it'll say, "You do not understand because you are not French." I have a very similar relationship to VeggieTales. I think it's one of those things where it's like my parents didn't want to hire a babysitter, and they were too like cheap during the summers when I was too young to go to like a full day camp thing. So they left me with they left me at a church 2 or 3 times a week. It was like a youth club type of thing. But the youth club consisted of daily activities, and during like a snack time, we would do a a brief watching of VeggieTales, and I remember thinking that it was really fucking weird. Like, even as a kid, I was like, what do vegetables have to do with Jesus? Wasn't
Well,
the
that's like,
I was gonna say, isn't there like a conspiracy theory or like a weird fact about why VeggieTales is about vegetables?
if there is, I actually don't know it, but I do know, like, I just learned the other day that the cheeseburger song is supposed to be about abstinence, and
We
I mean,
all
it makes
failed. We all failed that one. We all ate the cheeseburger.
right, but if you like listen to the lyrics, I guess it makes sense because it's like, I'll wait for you, because the cheeseburger place is
Yeah,
closed.
you
I'm
miss
like,
that when you're a child.
right, like there is no uh what's the word? In Barbara Manatee. Like Larry the Cucumber is
Allegory.
just
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
he's
no
just in love
metaphor.
with Barbara Manatee. Yeah. So
I'm fact checking my VeggieTales conspiracy theory. I can't fucking find it. Of course, I should have fucking like screenshotted it or something when I saw it, but it was something on Reddit like a while ago, and I think the idea was they didn't want the show to be about kids, and they didn't want the show to be about like rules. They wanted it to be fun. They wanted it to be accessible. They wanted it to be interesting and colorful. And these are all things that cartoons were able to provide. You know, we all grew up with Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, like whatever were, you know,
right.
specific interests were. But the thing about VeggieTales that I believe was the reason it's about vegetables is because vegetables are incapable of sin.
I've heard that.
And that the reason it's specifically vegetables doing these like metaphorical things is because they feel like they're on the up and up. They feel like they're safe, you know.
Right.
So what's so so what's the opposite of that? Let's make a show about a bunch of fruits doing drugs and having sex.
Sausage Party?
Ah, sausage party. That is fair. That is good. That is quick. That was good. That was good, Barbara. That was very fast. I didn't even think about that. I would say Frowns would be very proud of you because he loves sausage party.
Of course he does.
Yeah, I mean, all that you need to do is watch the scene where all of the fucking food is just fucking each other constantly,
Yeah, really.
and you understand what he appreciates about it. I also think he has a thing for the Del Taco, the actress who plays the Del Taco.
What the fuck is that?
I'm gonna feel really stupid for not knowing her name. Salma Hayek.
Oh, I mean, of course, she's gorgeous.
Salma Hayek, I mean, everyone should be interested in Salma Hayek, but more so the point of he really just appreciated her playing a taco.
I mean, it makes sense.
It's like, you know, it's like the same reason everyone loves Jennifer Coolidge, you know.
Yeah.
It was just 4th of July, so I had to hear a lot of people saying I want a hot dog really, really bad.
Yeah. I mean, it only sounds good if you actually can do Jennifer
Well,
Coolidge, which
that's
I
fair.
cannot.
Oh, it makes me want a hot dog really, really bad. So, Barbara Manatee.
Yes.
Manatee. Welcome to Lotsa Pasta. This is the podcast that you've been listening to. Welcome to the show, part of the ship, part of the crew. How do you feel about being here? Is this surreal to you at all to hear my voice and be able to interact with it?
It kind of is. I'm not gonna lie. When I sent that first email and you sent back this whole like poll of like, what was your favorite episode? Who's your favorite guest? I'm like, this is a moderator. Like, this isn't real. You're not. This is just like computer generated.
A lot of what I do is like, whose line is it anyway? Because all of this is made up and none of it fucking matters. And I don't have any help. I have zero assistance in doing any of this. So it is all literally me. I do everything. If you've seen anything on our YouTube, I do all of that. If you've seen anything about the art for our show, I do that. If you've seen the shop on Redbubble, I do that. If you've listened to a fucking episode, I do that.
When do you sleep?
Never actually. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
It's the best time to sleep.
Yeah, to quote, what is that? Predator? No, that's Predator is. I ain't got time to bleed. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out at some point. Yeah. So I think the funny thing about having a fan on the show and like just talking to you for a sec is like, there's usually a moment of like, oh, I'm so used to listening to this person ramble. Now I'm interacting with this person and they're asking me things. I am putting you on the hot seat. So
yes. Here's the funny thing. I talk to your episodes while I'm listening to them, so this really isn't much different.
Okay, so I'm just not hearing it.
Yeah, of course.
If anything, it's me who needs to figure this the fuck out.
Exactly.
All right. So what is it you say while you're listening?
Oh, I make comments just like you guys do.
Oh, okay.
And it's like I'm sitting there with you and just
you're on the couch.
Yeah,
you're on the couch with us. You're sitting around the campfire. You're passing the smokes. You're having a good time.
Yeah.
I think that's fair because that's the vibe we try to bring. That's the vibe we try to entice people with. I think if I were to ask you probably all the same questions all over again, but now I need to do it in an audio format so that other people can figure it out as well. What brought you to Lotsa Pasta? How did you find the show?
So it's a story. It's story time.
I like stories.
I was in a really bad car wreck in 2018. Like it put me in the hospital for a week. I broke my femur. I had staples in my head. Yeah, I was almost paralyzed. Yeah, it was really bad. So when I finally got home a week later, I was in the hospital for a week. I was stuck in my recliner downstairs because I couldn't go up the stairs. My leg that had my broken femur had a full, it wasn't a cast, but it was like keeping my leg in place.
Can I interject one moment to say something insensitive?
Yes.
My leg! All right, continue.
I had to relearn how to bend my knee.
Fuck.
Yeah. So I was stuck in a recliner for almost a year.
No way.
Yeah, I was very depressed. I am a very, very independent person, and I hated having to ask people. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. Like, I couldn't do anything without help.
I've had, so this isn't this is just a way for me to relate to you. I was diagnosed with gout a couple years ago, so I can't like drink as much or indulge as much in shitty things. And when it's bad, I can't walk. I can't move on it. Like I'm in so much pain. I need to take, like 6 ibuprofen and try to flush it out of my system as much as possible. So like I've been in situations where I've had to crawl on the floor to get to the bathroom. Like when I was living by myself, there were days I could not leave my bed. I was in so much pain and like I could not sleep because it has a heat to it. It has a needle-ish pain to it. It has a burn to it. So I might not be able to relate to life-altering car accident, and I hope not many people can relate to that. I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, but I can relate to being immobilized for a definite amount of time.
So the crazy thing is I have no memory of the actual accident.
Oh,
I only know what
so like if I were to ask you what happened, you wouldn't even be able to like pinpoint it.
I I can tell you what happened before, and I can tell you what happened after, but I cannot tell you anything about the accident itself. I can tell you what I was told happened
Which is
because
what?
I have no idea. So I was driving to work. It's like 8:30 in the morning, and what I remember happening is I looked down at my arm and I thought I saw a bug. It's just a random memory that I have. And then I look
Yeah.
up. And the next thing I remember is paramedics having to cut me out of my car. They had to use the jaws of life to get me out of the car.
Yeah. Big old can opener.
What I'm, yeah, what I'm told happened is I was on a 2-lane road. I'm told I crossed a double yellow line. I was driving a Kia Soul and hit a box truck head on.
Holy
That's
shit.
what I'm told. That's what I'm told
That's
happened.
some Final
I shouldn't have.
Destination shit.
Yeah, I should not have survived, but I did. I should have been paralyzed. My C7 was crushed to half the size that it should have been. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, not good. So,
Well, I am glad you made it through that, and I'm glad you survived, because I think it's one of those situations where the entire universe had your number and you were like, nah.
yeah, or somebody was like, "Nah, she's got something that she needs to do. She needs to be here for some reason." Still haven't figured that part out, but I'm here. So anyway, back to me being
You
stuck
had to
in
record on the Lotsa Pasta podcast. You had to find the
right.
Lotsa Pasta podcast. You
Exactly.
had to come and record with Cat and Death on the Lotsa Pasta podcast. That's what you had to do.
That's exactly what it
You
was.
could die after this.
Right? We're gonna get off.
Like most of us are, yeah. No, fair.
Right?
We haven't lost anyone on the show yet. So, if anything, this should produce longevity.
I mean, you've been doing it for like ever, so
8 to 10 years, somewhere in there.
I know. So anyway, I'm stuck in my recliner. I can't do anything but like watch TV, play on my phone, and I had found a podcast, SCP Archives.
Yeah. I've heard.
They just,
Yeah.
yeah, they just read SCPs, and then I found Last Podcast on the Left.
Uh-huh.
I was watching a lot of YouTube. That's how I discovered Markiplier.
Yes.
Um,
Fucking love Mark. Fucking love Last Podcast. Yeah.
My first episode ever I watched of him was watching him playing Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
When he flips the fucking chair and the table and he just screams.
The title literally says throws chair in rage. And I'm like, all right, I need to watch this. I was crying. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
And then I just went down a Markiplier rabbit hole. And then I think it was on Last Podcast. They were like reading creepypastas, and I was like, hey, I want to hear more of this. And that's literally how I discovered you. But then I like lost you for like a couple of years. It like got deleted off of my Spotify. And then I just recently was like, I need to find you again. And then I did, and I started from the beginning, and now I'm at 258.
You're almost caught up. You're almost done.
I don't like that. I don't like having to wait.
That's funny. The funny thing is, I've told that to so many people, and they've been like, it's okay, I'll just go back and start from the top. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, please don't. Please find something else to listen to.
I mean, I listened to you. I listened to Welcome to Night Vale.
Yeah. It's one of the best.
Which I started that from the beginning, and now I'm like caught up, which I'm very upset about. So now I have to wait like a week or whatever for new ones to come out. I'm not a patient person.
So we originally started doing weekly, I think, when I had more availability and more people who were interested in doing weekly. We moved to bi-weekly for my sanity.
I would think so.
And I think just my life is different now than what it was. I started this when I was in college.
Right.
And it was like right before I graduated. So it's like I had time to fuck around and do dumb shit. I don't necessarily have the same amount of time to fuck around and do dumb shit, but I make time to fuck around and do dumb shit. So you found us by diving into all of the stupid shit that we do, which is similar to last podcast and Markiplier. Like, we have Let's Plays on YouTube. We have creepypasta episodes. We have storytelling show, you know. So you found us as a branch from other things that I love.
Yes.
What was the episode that like brought you in, if you have the ability to remember such things?
I actually just started from the beginning. I
You started
like
from the
saw
top.
you. Yeah, I did. I like listened to the first episode. I was like, these guys are fucking idiots, and I love it. Let's go.
That's usually tough. I think there's a litmus test that most people don't realize the first episode. I inadvertently, you know, completely unprovoked, I did not mean for this to happen, but I hit the ground running when it came to making the show, and not that anyone's ever asked, but like the reason it was the stars aligned kind of thing where I was in the right headspace at the right time with the right person, which was Frowns.
Well, of course.
And he's my best friend. He's been my best friend since I was 16. I'm now 30. I'm turning 33 in like 3 weeks.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Thank you. This will be coming out closer to my birthday, so I appreciate it, Barbara. Thank you. I had a really crappy like DSLR mic that I used for shooting videos because I went to film school. I was really interested in doing media. I had been my entire life. There are 2 other channels on YouTube that I had made when I was, there's some embarrassing cringe stuff. When I was 12 years old, I made one, and then when I was 16 years old, I made one. And there are 2 other channels floating in the ether out there. One of them is full of sketch comedy and stop motion videos, and then the other one is just a different sketch comedy group. Both of them I wrote for. I was writing sketch comedy as early as like 12, like improv stuff. I had been acting since I was like 11. I had been in like 30 shows by the time I was like 18. I mean, like community theater and state theater and stuff like that.
I mean,
like high school and I was the theater kid. I was, you know.
I was a chorus kid. Like I wanted to
I did
act,
chorus
but
too.
I also
Yeah.
have horrible body dysmorphia. I have horrible voice dysmorphia. Like I'm gonna listen to this episode when it ever comes out, but I'm going to hate the sound of my voice the entire time.
So many people ride that line on this show,
Like,
and I think one of my I've never been a fan of my voice, just for the, you know, putting it out there, just saying it. I've never been a fan of my voice. I think when I listen to myself, I complete disembody. I think it's someone else. I don't.
I get that.
I in order to power through the activity, I tell myself that this isn't me.
Yeah,
and I push through.
yes.
Who's your favorite person to listen to on the show?
I mean, like it's always going to be Frowns because I love how chaotic he is, but I enjoy especially enjoy it when it's like you and a couple of other people, like when it's like you and Harold Heavy Hands and Strawberry Shortcake, because it's chaotic. Like the 200 episodes had me rolling, like listening to you guys
Yeah.
screaming at each other and all that was hilarious.
Yeah. There are more of those, and there are going to be more of those, but it's tough because the things I appreciate about this show are so far removed from what people like the most. It's like,
Tell me.
I don't get to record with Frowns very often because he moved to Boston. And
No.
I don't like recording online. And I'm saying this with you because this is the gateway for us to record. You know, you live in a completely different state, so that this is the way.
Right.
But when it comes to recording with him, I like the energy to be high. I like to be in the same place. I like to actually be on the couch with him. So on the next episode you're going to hear him on, we're going to be together. And that's like the first thing is like, I can't get him on as much anymore. And I'm sure you noticed that because he kind of dwindles off as the episode goes into the hundreds. I would say he's in the most episodes of anyone on the show, but that's because I would say he was on more than half of the first 100. So that's first things first. Second thing second, I like order. And I'm OCD about how things sound and how things work and having a methodology, and I like having a schedule, and I like having rules, and I like these things to exist this way. And I think where the comedy comes in is when those things are taken away from me. And I think that when some of the best stuff on this show has been the unpredictable, the unscheduled, the improvised, aspects of the show. And when people tell me that something like episode 200 or those 4 episodes with the cabin game, when people tell me that that's the best thing I've done on the show, it does make me feel good because I spent a lot of time working on those things. But I think what makes those things special is not me. Like, I think it is the group sum interaction, the chaos.
It is, but it's also you, because if you didn't do this, if you didn't put the game together and put the groups together, it wouldn't exist.
That's
so
fair.
It is all you.
That is fair. I don't like, we've played that game, I want to say like 5 other times, like off the show. And each time it proves to be challenging and different. And that's the only reason I don't do more of that. But I will tell you, for being my guest here, as a little wink wink nod nod special thing for the future that I'm happy to say on the show. We are going to do a return to the cabin.
Yay.
And it is most likely going to be 2 or 3 episodes long. And it is going to be, I'm going to try to bring back as many people from those 2 groups as I can to be on it all at the same time together. But when I ask you what your favorite thing about it is, and you say something that I'm really proud of, it makes me happy. I appreciate that.
Honestly, my favorite thing is just that it exists. Like, the chaos episodes are great, but like, I listen to you when I go to work my second job. I listen to you on long car rides. Like, any chance I get where I need something to kind of just give me smooth brain and can just listen and focus on another task, I'm gonna put you on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I think it is easy to listen to. I do want to pat myself on the back for not making it something difficult. I think it's very accessible. I think there's a fine line that you remind me of when you say something like that, because so many people don't like this show. I don't want to say so many people, but like earlier on, we had a very vocal minority of people just saying this show is ass because the quality, because of the guests, because of the interjections of the stories. And I don't know. I think that's what makes me me. And I think if you were looking for a production quality of some studio out there, you're already in the wrong place. And if you were looking for something polished or a little bit more theatrical, there's other stuff out there that already does that. I think the thing about podcasts is genuinely, as evidenced here, anyone can do it.
Right.
So I mean, I've had other people on the Patreon that I've tried getting on and I've tried talking to, and it's one of those things where some people are more comfortable just being a listener, and some people don't want to cross that line to coming on and talking and doing the thing. So again, I appreciate you being here and talking with me.
Yeah, I appreciate. I mean, I not gonna lie, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would have been like, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not outgoing enough to do that because I'm a very introverted person. But a lot's changed.
Yeah.
That's a story for another time.
Sure.
When you were talking about, people not liking the interjections, I actually had one of my partners listen to a couple of your episodes, and he's like, I don't like how they just kind of like stop and talk, because he gets into the story and he just wants you to continue with the story. It's not
Yeah.
that he doesn't like the interjections, he just wants to, like, he's invested in the story and is like, no, don't stop.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I do try to keep it in my pants as much as possible. There are things that I can't help but just be like, all right, I need to break for a sec. This needs to
Yeah.
be said.
Yeah.
As evidenced on so many episodes, there are only so many people where I get a vibe where the story is more important than we are. There are certain people on the show who that's what they come for.
Yeah. I mean,
They'd rather read than talk.
like Veraska. When you got to the twist in Veraska, I literally like paused the episode and was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And then like left right game, that was mostly you guys just reading the story, and I was so invested. I was
Yeah,
so ready
see, when
for it to
people
come out.
ask me my favorite thing that I've done on the show, I will always say left right game. I think there was a lightning strike moment there where I was like, if stories like this exist on the
Yeah,
internet, I want people to point them out to me so that I
yeah,
know, so that I can experience them like this again. And I think Baraska is up there. I think Left Right Game is the epitome of that argument. I think Sin Eater is up
oh
there.
yeah, that one was fantastic.
I think a
I
lot of the
did like
stuff I do
that.
with Cannibal Siren is up there, like the apartment series. That's
Oh
probably
yes.
a highlight. The romantic cabin is a highlight.
I mean, I just enjoy you and Cannibal Siren together because it's like you've touched on like people thinking you guys are together. Obviously, you're not, but I never got that. Like, I got this like brother sister kind of vibe.
That is our vibe, though. We very much are. Like, I really do think she's just me with a vagina. And I don't even mean that in any other way than anatomically. We have very similar interests. We went to the same college. We have a very similar sense of humor. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, she is my sister.
Yeah, and I always got that. Like, it never occurred to me that
You,
there would be,
do
which
you want to
obviously
know
there's
the
not
story
anything.
behind that? Do you want to know the story
I would,
behind that conversation? Why that came up in an episode with her?
yes.
So there was someone in my life. Let's just call her a fuck buddy. Let's just say it was a situationship.
All right.
There was a period of time where I was seeing maybe two or three people at the same time, and they were aware of one another. I wasn't being seedy or mistrusting or gross about it at all.
Get
It
out.
was just where I was.
Yeah.
And I've always been very on the up and up with people about
Yeah.
those parts of my life, as as we talk about. And there there was a point when one of them got very like possessive of me and
Ew.
the people I was around, and I had to cut that off because she started thinking that anyone with a vagina around me was someone I slept with.
Ew.
Yeah, it wasn't nice and it wasn't a good look. And what was even more awkward was she was someone who liked to be like manhandled a little bit. She was into like BDSM and stuff like that. So it's like, wait, where do you get off accusing me of stuff when you're the one
Right.
whose kink is literally like being tied up and shit? So it's like, all right, I'm gonna need to like stop and untie you and explain this to you like one last time that Cannibal Siren and I have never done anything. We've never have interest in doing anything. She's been dating the same guy since high school. She's been with the same guy for like 12 years.
Oh yeah, like that sounds like my best friend. She dated a guy for like guy she's with for like 10 years before they finally got married.
And I know him and I love him and he's a big cuddly bear and like I would never do anything to mess with that situation. So it's like I love Cannibal Siren, I love her that way. And
Right.
I'm glad I can finally like clear the air on that one, because the only reason I felt the need to come on and say that is because the girl that questioned that listened to the show.
Ah.
And she was like, the way you talk to this person, like you're always talking to this person a certain way. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. That's just me. And I think you're projecting a little bit here. And I think there's some insecurity there. And honestly, it's not attractive at all. So,
Yeah.
and that kind of showed me that I should separate these things. And I should keep these things separated, because if I'm going to continue to do this and there's a love for this craft here, and this is something I'm even talking like unsexually, I'm talking like with my friends.
Yeah.
If I like to do this, then this has to be approached through a certain mindset that if things get messy elsewhere in my life, then there's a complete disconnect. So that's why, obviously there are people that I'm not on the same terms with as much anymore, and that's why they're not on the show anymore. And it's one of those things where
Right.
it's like I can't do that either. I can't bring on someone, even someone I might care about like a lot, that I had a relationship with. It's like I can't mess that in this.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very you can't shit where you eat mentality. And
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
yeah, I think just to keep the persona of me and what I do and what the priorities are here, I think it makes the most sense. It's like a level of professionalism, It's I have my dick in my hand. I'm here, I'm fucking talking. I'm stroking my shit on the podcast. But it's like that's the persona. That's the captain.
Right.
That's the captain quality. There's an element of professionalism here that I laugh as I say that, because it's ironic the level of bullshit that we get up to.
Right. I mean, it's professional quality recording, but the shit that happens on the podcast, not so
Thanks.
it is.
So if we're talking about the show a little bit more, what's your favorite story we've read? Does that take you back to Baraska? Is that where your mind goes?
No, I mean, I loved Baraska because I loved the twist. Like, I literally was at work when it happened and was just like, "Holy fuck, are you kidding me?"
That's a kind of we need to stop the car and get out and take a breather.
Basically, like
type of
I
moment.
paused the episode because I was at where I paused it and I was like, I need to process what was just said. Left right game. The letter to Satan was great.
I'm sure
Like,
Frowns would appreciate that, because that's
I
I haven't done many series with him. I think that I've only done like 2 maybe with him,
Yeah.
and that's one that he thinks about a lot.
I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not gonna
he
lie.
would do the
like,
David laugh right now if I were to ask him to, but
like I feel like every Christmas episode that you do is a series. Like it's part of the series.
I do keep adding to them.
I know.
I do keep calling them like the 13th or 12th Christmas
Right.
episode.
But yeah, I really liked that one. Like I said in the email when you guys finally did the Pancake Family, because I had heard that on a different podcast. I don't know if you've heard of this one. It's called The Antiquarium
I
of.
have. Yes.
Have you? Okay. I don't know if you've actually listened to it,
I have.
but it's very much storytelling, and I like the way they do that too. But that's where I heard that story for the first time.
Right.
Yeah, and it freaked me out just as much the second time when you guys did it.
You know the fun
You know,
you know the fun story about that.
you told me, but like, it, when you hear things that are kind of just not right, like when you did the Vor episode and you just make a face, like there's no
Yeah.
control. Like you're hearing
Yeah.
it and you're just. I was doing that. I was driving, and I just made that face. Like I don't want to listen to this, but I can't stop listening to it. I can't.
It hurts.
It hurts. Why am I doing this to myself?
I think the funniest thing about Pancake Family and the Vor episode is those are the moments that pushed Where Am I to his like to the limit.
Yeah.
He actually left during Pancake Family. Like he said that he did not feel good and he actually left. And
Yeah.
I paused the episode. I said, "It's okay. You can go. I'll finish it. Read these lines and I'll interstitch it to make it sound like you're still here." But I let him leave because he was that uncomfortable reading it. And I think it's funny that that's where like he goes when we read an uncomfortable story like that, because I almost relish it a little bit. Like I'm fucked up about it. I like it.
I see. The bad thing is, I do too. The Vor episode, no, like that's kind of my.
No. So I appreciate the Vor episode in a way that like I want to make sure I never read anything like this, but I'm glad we talked about it like right now, right here, and I never want to go back to this moment ever again. But
Yeah.
but it's more of a hindsight appreciation. In the
Yeah, like, I
moment,
don't,
in the
like-
moment, I was not appreciating it.
It didn't sound like it. I can do most gore, like listening to it. I don't do teeth and eyeballs.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I don't do teeth. And then you guys, a few episodes ago, you guys were talking about Talk to Me,
Yeah,
the movie Talk to Me.
yeah.
I went and saw that. Like, I like horror movies. That was a gore movie, and I almost couldn't watch it. Like, I spent
Yeah.
a lot of it with my face covered because it was just like gruesome. I was watching it with my girlfriend, and when the dog came on the screen, I looked at her and I went, "If they hurt the dog, I'm leaving the theater." Fortunately, they did not.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's one of those unspoken rules. It's like you don't hurt the dog.
Yeah, don't hurt the dog. I was like, I will leave the theater and not watch the rest of this movie. And in hindsight, I should have left the theater and not watched
And
the rest.
you might have been better off. So
Yeah, 'cause that was.
okay, so we're learning what brought you to the show, what you liked about the show, where you kind of sit on the show. I want to ask you a question I don't think I've asked anyone yet, because you've dabbled in other things. You've heard other stories. Have you read like No Sleep? Do you make a point to dabble in these things in the medium that they're in, or is it more of a listening thing?
I just enjoy listening to you guys. I do have, like, I am subscribed to No Sleep on Reddit and, some of the other ones. And I'll, like, when they pop up on my Reddit, I'll sometimes dive into them. But I mostly just enjoy listening because it's easier for me sometimes.
Oh no,
than having to.
Why people find podcasts or audiobooks, the reason that they have, that it is its own thing. The reason I ask the question, Is there a story that you'd like us to read?
I don't know if I mentioned it to you when we were talking, but I also I'm gonna go on a side quest here for a
Yeah.
second. Have you ever watched Sniper Wolf by any chance? You have any idea who she is?
Can't say I do.
Okay, not important. She did a series on. She did a couple of videos on Dear David. Have
Oh my god,
you ever
Glitch talks
gone?
about Dear David all the time.
Have you like gone through the Twitter
No.
thread of Dear David?
No, because I told Glitch we would do it together.
Okay, you totally should. Like, it's definitely one of those like when you were doing the spelunking one where you thought it was
Ted the Caver.
better. Yeah, Ted the Caver with like the pictures and stuff. It makes a little bit more sense, which Dear David does too, because there's pictures that go along with it that make it very creepy. But because it's you guys, I think you could read it well enough and like talking about the pictures that you see, I still think it would read well. I think you should go
So
through it and then
so
do it.
Glitch's thing about Dear David is he wanted to do it on like Twitch.
Okay.
He wanted it to be a thing that we do not necessarily live, but maybe more he wanted it to be more of like a YouTube thing.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense. Like I said, like if you go through it and you like see the progression of pictures that go with the story, it makes sense to do that because then the viewer
But
can
you're
also.
saying that it would work as a podcast.
I think it would. I mean, I
Okay.
honestly like you guys have done other things where like you're like I don't know if this is going to read well and it still reads well because you guys are theatrical and you kind of like you do it well enough that even
We've
without the
read enough
pictures.
stories on the show that have pictures that I
Right.
just say,
Right.
let's ignore that quality of it.
Right. And I
Focus
think
on the
just taking
narrative.
right. I still think it works without the pictures.
All right. I'm going to add that to my list because it wasn't on my upcoming focus, but now that you're saying that, I kind of feel the need to give it more attention. Because you're saying it's one of your favorite things you've heard recently, and you're like, we should do that.
Yeah, like it's because it's creepy. It's like I mean,
Yeah.
did Glitch go into like
No,
what it's
I told him I wanted to go into it mostly blind, and he
okay?
respected that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I just yeah, um, I think it would be good.
Because isn't it ghosty, haunting?
It's very yes,
Yeah.
yes, very ghosty.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm writing it down. I am including it in the upcoming season, quote unquote. And if we have time for it, Glitch and I will get into it.
Awesome.
On another same side, same coin, different question. If we were to do something for the YouTube other than Dear David, is there like a game or something that you'd want us to experience?
I think it would be entertaining to watch you guys do Inscription.
Oh, I love Inscription.
I love that. That and um,
I love Inscription so much.
what is the stick figure game? West of Loathing.
Oh, I don't know that. What is that?
You are a stick figure in a western town and you go around and complete tasks and things and you can either be a cowpuncher or a bean a bean some sort of bean magician and there's another one and then you like um you level up your things and you can like you learn lock picking and like outsmarting and like all these it's really funny. Markiplier has a series on it and it's great. It's so good.
I did not watch him play that, and I did not know what this was. But now that I do, it's going on the list.
You should because one of the first things you learn is so you read books to like gain abilities and one of the first books is silly walking.
Yeah.
So anytime your stick figure moves, he's like doing cartwheels or like scooting on his butt or like doing high kicks. And it's always something different every time you move. and it's hilarious.
Who would you... So, Inscription is more of a solo thing. And
Yeah.
I've thought about doing it before. Because I love the vibes.
I mean, I could
But,
also see that being as like a Game Grumps type thing where one of you's playing and the other one's kind of commentating on what's
okay.
happening.
Okay. Is there anyone you'd want me to play Inscription with? Because I have a
I feel
feeling you'd
like
tell me to play West of Loathing with Frowns.
that'd be hilarious, actually. I think he'd get a kick out of that.
One of Frowns'
Uh,
favorite things is Undertale.
okay, yeah, he would totally get a kick out of West of Loathing.
So, yeah. Uh,
I
yeah.
feel like I feel like Inscription might be good with like Harold Heavy Hands or maybe Strawberry Shortcake
Okay. Okay, yeah.
because like I don't know, I feel like they would help you, pick which way to go and like which idols to
I
get,
could leave
which like
certain options up to them. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, Barbara Manatee, thank you so much. Manatee. Thank you for coming on and talking to me and having this conversation with me. I had a really fun time. Did you have a fun time talking?
I had a fantastic time,
Good,
and
because if
I'm
you
so
said you
glad that
didn't, I would be very upset.
the worst thing ever. I can't stand it. Just delete all of this.
Fuck.
I don't even want.
Delete it, scrap it, trash it, dump it.
Damn it!
Because I don't know who I do this for sometimes. To be real, I don't know who I do this for sometimes. So when someone like you lovingly signs up for our Patreon as a subscriber, which
Mm.
I I would never ask for anyone to pay for any of this. I don't want people to feel like they have to pay for this. In fact, this is going to be my notification to you that you shouldn't pay for this. I don't want you to. I appreciate it. I love that you did that. That's not the reason I'm having you on this. If you had emailed me and said, "I love your show," I'd still want to have you on and talk about it. But no, I think the the Patreon is a reminder that there are people that appreciate this and
Right,
appreciate what I've dedicated so much of my life to
right. And
for so
I didn't
long.
sign. I didn't sign up for the Patreon just for you to be like, "Hey, come be on an episode with me." I signed up because I appreciate what you do, and like that's me showing my appreciation.
Thank you so much. And this is a reminder that we do have a Patreon for everyone else out there. We have several people on the Patreon. I'm going to take an opportunity to thank everyone who, cuz I keep a list. Okay. So here's everyone who is subscribed to the Patreon just to give them a shout out, because there was a point there where I didn't know how to run it. I didn't know what the point of it was. I don't like asking people for things. It's hard enough for me to get people on this show. The last thing I want to do is make people think that they have to actually give me money to do any of this. So,
But you didn't ask. You just said, "Hey, I set this up." Like, you're not asking
I
anybody. Like
know,
we've
but there's an exchange of hands quality to Patreon that they literally make you like jump through hoops. They say like you have to offer things to your subscribers, and so that's what I mean is like I don't know what I have to offer. There are ideas. I have ideas. I have shades of ideas of things I can offer, but the thing I thought about the most was, well, if people invest in me, I feel confident investing in them. And that's why the highest caliber of the Patreon was, if you subscribe to this, I will talk to you and I will see, I'll vet you and I'll see if
right.
you can come on the show. And you're another solid example of how someone follows that protocol and makes it happen.
Right.
So, this is a thank you to Barbara Manatee, one of our Patreons. I have to give a shout out to Isaiah, but it's spelled Izzaiyah. He's been listening for a long time. He's probably the most vocal at this point listener on SoundCloud. Isaiah, this one's for you. You're a goat. You are a literal goat. Milk the goat. So I don't know where Star is. Star isn't on Patreon, but Star was our really vocal supporter on SoundCloud for a while there. So this is a shout out to Star Eve. If you're still out there, hope you're doing good. Another Patreon, Bones and Jonesin. That's an in joke for the YouTube. I know who Bones and Jonesin is. He's someone on the show, and I just appreciate his support all the time. Here's a person I would love to interview on the show, much like what I just did with you here. Trevor the Werefishy. He was like another one of the very first people to sign up for the Patreon because he was just a fan of our show. Trevor, if you're listening, hope you're doing good, man. The offer is always on the table. He was also in a spot, much like you mentioned, where like mentally he just wasn't ready. He just didn't want to record. But yeah. I'm saying this now. I'm putting it into the ether right here, right now. Trevor, there's always a spot for you at the table if you want to talk. Just let me know. Peer pressure, Trevor. It's a thing. It works. Evan Gravino, shout out, the longtime childhood friend. Known him for, I want to say, 20 years. Love the guy. Shout out to him. He's been a Patreon subscriber for a long time. And of course, the OG, the reason to do it, the reason to keep doing it, Kitty, aka Taurus Filth. She was the first person to sign up for the Patreon, and she will always be the reason I continue doing it and having it be a thing, because she told me to. And
peer pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I just said it works, and it does. Yeah, I made the red bubble because, frankly, I had one already. When I was in high school, I designed T-shirts. I've been on many T-shirt sites with designs and stuff. I've been selling art for a very long time, so Redbubble was not hard for me. I thought, hey, I've done all this art for this show already. Why not put them on shirts or stickers, whatever, let people buy whatever they want to buy. So here's another reminder for a shout out to our Redbubble shop. That's redbubble.com. If you go on there and you search Lotsa Pasta, you will find us. There's a shirt design that has all the characters from the show. It's the logo of the show. There's a banner design that has everyone in a banner. There are individual designs. I think one of the funniest things I've ever seen was when Kitty came to visit me. Like, literally, she came from New Zealand to Pennsylvania to visit me. I literally, like, the first thing I saw her wearing was a hoodie with Where Am I's face on it. And when she walked in to the house wearing that, Where Am I was there. and he saw her wearing it. And I pointed at him and I said, "You're wearing his face." And she was like, "Wait, that's you?" And we all lost it.
That's good.
Yeah, so this is a shout-out reminder to the Redbubble store. The username on there is El Capitan Muerte if you want to go check out our Redbubble store to see our shit. But this is also a reminder for the Patreon and the Ko-fi account. That's Ko-fi, K-O-F-I. Ko-fi is like a one-time donation, subscription donation type site. There's nothing to get out of it. I just post all my shit there the same way I do to SoundCloud, the same way I do to Patreon. I think the reason I am doing this now and the reason I'm trying to make a point of doing this now is because I've given the Patreon thing a little bit more thought. Anything I've recorded on Twitch, I'm going to start going through and posting on Patreon as like quote unquote exclusive content.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have hours of stuff on Twitch that either I've played by myself or stuff I've done with Twitch, with stuff I've done with Glitch or Frowns or Harold or Skelly Bones. Like, there are so many people I've played things with that just hasn't been put on the YouTube because I don't know if it's like worth putting on there and making a big thing out of. But what I will do is go through it, sift through it, and put stuff on the Patreon. So this is my point of saying, I'll try to be better about thanking my patrons because I do put them on my YouTube credits. If you sign up for the Patreon, you're immediately added to the YouTube credits. I do not hesitate with that. Barbara Manatee, the minute she signed up, she was already added. And then there's stuff like this, where if you like talking to me, if you email me, if you message me, if you're on the Reddit, if you're on the Facebook, we have both of those. If you find me on SoundCloud, if you reach out to me like fucking Billy Wilkinson, we will talk. I will have you on the show. I am happy to have anyone on the show. But I am more inclined to have you on the show if you are a Patreon subscriber. So this is the shout out for that. But also I think I want to start doing stuff there. I think there's a part of me that wants to give back to the people who are giving to me, and I think I'm going to start doing like let's get together and watch a movie like once a month type of thing on Twitch.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, just for my Patreon subscribers. Like if I can schedule a thing, if I could put a notification out there, I will. There are things I'm willing to do. I just need the audience to tell me that that's something that they would want. So this is the call to action. This is me putting it out there into the ether. If anyone, including you, Barbara, would like to see any of that, let me know. But I think already with the list I have, you've given me some inspiration here. So I'm going to be doing some stuff in your name, Barbara Manatee.
Oh.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a genuine pleasure.
It has. It's been very fun.
So is there any final thoughts, any messages you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, smooth brain. No thoughts.
Well, that is the idea, is that that's what we get out of it. We get the smooth brain. Okay, guys, you know the drill. This is a solo episode, so I'll be reading some stories on my own now. What I did was I was stuck in a spot about what I wanted to do for this episode, and what I have coming up shortly as like a little surprise for everyone for the 300th. I wanted to dip my toe back into like short stories, and it's been a while since we've done like popular artists, I suppose, popular writers, popular authors, and I've never done like a variety episode of just a bunch of short stories from a bunch of prolific authors from over history and time. So I know I've read Stephen King, I know I've read Alvin Schwartz, I know I've read R.L. Stine, but it's like those seem a little bit more telegraphed. Those seem a little bit more expected for the people who have been listening to this show long enough. They know me They know what's coming. They know what we're about here, so they know what to expect in those regards. Like, we talk about Stephen King a fuck ton. Like, Goosebumps shouldn't have surprised anyone, and Alvin Schwartz was, like, the progenitor for people. Like, he was the gateway drug for scary stories. Like, he's probably the godfather of no sleep in general, the idea of people coming together and sharing stories. Like, that's why he made those collections. Like, that's why Alvin Schwartz, he went around the world and, like, collected all of these stories from people, and that's what Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark became. So this might as well be my Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark episode, because what I did was I went around online and I found stories that people recommend from other authors that might not even be considered horror authors. Not in the long run, not with the people I feel like I got. I feel like I got 2 people who were expected and 2 people who weren't. And I'm going to read 4 short stories here, all different lengths. If you've seen the description for this episode, then you already know what's coming. This isn't a surprise, but I don't want to talk about it beforehand. I don't want to hype anything up. I kind of just want to... I wanted to do the fan thing with Barbara. It was such a pleasure having her on the episode. I hope she's still listening. I hope she hasn't clicked off of the episode now that she's done hearing herself, or maybe she already did before she started talking, but hopefully she's still here. I appreciate it so much. I love these fan interactions. I love people who reach out to the show. So honestly, anyone else who's listening, doesn't matter if you're not a Patreon subscriber. You send me fan mail. I'm saying this again. I'm screaming. I am old man screaming at clouds. If you have anything to recommend us, if there's anything you want to hear us read, please, 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 find us on Reddit, find us on Facebook, find us on SoundCloud, message me on anywhere. But I also have an email. I will continue to plug the email. It is LP, as in Lotsa Pasta, LP Captain Death. All one word, all lowercase, LP Captain Death @gmail.com. That is the email for the podcast. If you want to reach out to us, that's probably the best way. I don't miss things often when they come there. I mean, Barbara knows I miss some things sometimes, but yeah, I without further ado, I don't necessarily want to get too into it. I want to read some stuff and then I want to come back and talk about it. So let's get into the spooky shit. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why, will you say, that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was so well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night just at 12 I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he had not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch, with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close-fastened through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in his bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still, and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no, it was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when the overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him. Although I chuckled at heart, I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor," or "It is merely a cricket which had made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he never saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time very patiently without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until, at length, a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open. Wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now, have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew the sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I had refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet, for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still, but the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now, a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only in an instant. I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done, but for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught it all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police officer, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought the chairs into the room, and I desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chattered of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but they still sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness, until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continuously increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now again, hark, louder, 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 louder! Villains! I shrieked. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart. January 1843. Fucking crazy, dude. Fucking crazy. I don't want to get into Edgar Allan Poe too much because I know the dude's a loon, but to write something like that at the time he wrote it, It's nuts. It's nuts. I think it's a bit autobiographical. The dude was just kind of venting. He was just like, everyone thinks I'm fucking crazy. I love it. I love it. Poe is a mystery to me. He's so weird and so crazy, and yet I love almost everything he's ever written. And so it's different than my admiration for other people, because I know he lived a tortured kind of life. And so it's interesting that something like Telltale Heart sticks out to me this well. I really like that. Really like that story. It's not the first time I've read it. There are other things I'm going to read here that I'm going to be reading for the first time. But that just felt like something I needed to do on the show at least once. Moving forward in time, we're now going to stop at June 1948. I am now going to read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather in the square between the post office and the bank around 10 o'clock. In some towns there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days and had to be started on June 26th, but in this village, where there were only about 300 people, the whole lottery took only about 2 hours, so it could begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be through in time to allow the villagers to get home for noon dinner. The children assembled first, of course. School was recently over for the summer, and the feeling of liberty sat uneasily on most of them. They tended to gather together quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play, and their talk was still of the classroom and the teacher, of books and reprimands. Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example, selecting the smoothest and roundest stones. Bobby and Harry Jones and Dickie Delacroix. The villagers pronounced the name Delacroix. Eventually made a great pile of stones in one corner of the square and guarded it against the raids of the other boys. The girls stood aside, talking amongst themselves, looking over their shoulders at the boys and the very small children rolled in the dust or clung to the hands of their older brothers and sisters. Soon, the men began to gather, surveying their own children, speaking of planting and rain, tractors and taxes. They stood together away from the pile of stones in the corner, and their jokes were quiet, and they smiled rather than laughed. The women, wearing faded house dresses and sweaters, came shortly after their menfolk. They greeted one another and exchanged bits of gossip as they went to join their husbands. Soon the women, standing by their husbands, began to call to their children, and the children came reluctantly, having to be called 4 or 5 times. Bobby Martin ducked under the mother's grasping hand and ran, laughing, back to the pile of stones. His father spoke up sharply, and Bobby came quickly and took his place between his father and his oldest brother. The lottery was conducted, as were the square dances, the teenage club, the Halloween program, by Mr. Summers, who had time and energy to devote to civic activities. He was a round-faced, jovial man, and he ran the coal business, and people were sorry for him, because he had no children, and his wife was a scold. When he arrived in the square carrying the black wooden box, there was a murmur of conversation among the villagers, and he waved and called, "Little late today, folks." The postmaster, Mr. Graves, followed him, carrying a 3-legged stool, and the stool was put in the center of the square, and Mr. Summers set the black box down on it. The villagers kept their distance, leaving a space between themselves and the stool, and when Mr. Summers said, Some of you fellows want to give me a hand? There was a hesitation before two men, Mr. Martin and his oldest son, Baxter, came forward to hold the box steady on the stool while Mr. Summers stirred up the papers inside it. The original paraphernalia for the lottery had been lost long ago, and the black box now resting on the stool had been put into use even before Old Man Warner, the oldest man in town, was born. Mr. Summers spoke frequently to the villagers about making a new box, but no one liked to upset even a much tradition as was represented by the black box. There was a story that the present box had been made with some pieces of the box that had preceded it, the one that had been constructed when the first people settled down to make a village here. Every year, after the lottery, Mr. Summers began talking about a new box, but every year the subject was allowed to fade off without anything being done. The black box grew shabbier each year. By now it was no longer completely black, but splintered badly along one side to show the original wood color, and in some places faded or stained. Mr. Martin and his oldest son, Baxter, held the black box securely on the stool until Mr. Summers had stirred the papers thoroughly with his hand. Because so much of the ritual had been forgotten or discarded, Mr. Summers had been successful in having slips of paper substituted for the chips of wood that had been used for generations. Chips of wood, Mr. Summers had argued, had been all very well when the village was tiny, but now that the population was more than 300 and likely to keep on growing, it was necessary to use something that would fit more easily into the black box. The night before the lottery, Mr. Summers and Mr. Graves had made up the slips of paper and put them into the box, and it was then taken to the safe of Mr. Summers' coal company and locked up until Mr. Summers was ready to take it to the square the next morning. The rest of the year, the box was put away, sometimes one place, sometimes another. It had spent 1 year in Mr. Graves's barn and another year underfoot in the post office, and sometimes it was set on a shelf in the Martin grocery and left there. There was a great deal of fussing to be done before Mr. Summers declared the lottery open. There were the lists to make up, of heads of families, heads of households in each family, members of each household in each family. There was the proper swearing in of Mr. Summers by the postmaster as the official of the lottery. At one time, some people remembered, there had been a recital of some sort performed by the official of the lottery, a perfunctory, tuneless chant that had been rattled off duty each year. Some people believed that the official of the lottery used to just stand, so when he said or sang it, others believed that he was supposed to walk among the people, but years and years ago this part of the ritual had been allowed to lapse. There had been also a ritual salute which the official of the lottery had to use in addressing each person who came up to draw from the box. But this had also changed with time, until now it was felt necessary only for the official to speak to each person approaching. Mr. Summers was very good at all this. In his clean white shirt and blue jeans, with one hand resting carelessly on the black box, he seemed very proper and important as he talked interminably to Mr. Graves and the Martins. Just as Mr. Summers finally left off talking and turned to the assembled villagers, Mrs. Hutchinson came hurriedly along the path to the square, her sweater thrown over her shoulders, and slid into place in the back of the crowd. "Clean forgot what day it was," she said to Miss Delcroix, who stood next to her, and they both laughed softly. "Thought my old man was out back stacking wood," Mrs. Hutchinson went on. "And then I looked out the window and the kids was gone, and then I remembered it was the 27th, and came a-running." She dried her hands on her apron, and Miss Delcroix said, "You're in time, though. They're still talking away up there." Mrs. Hutchinson craned her neck to see through the crowd and found her husband and children standing near the front. She tapped Mrs. Delcroix on the arm as a farewell and began to make her way through the crowd. The people separated good-humoredly to let her through. 2 or 3 people said in voices just loud enough to be heard across the crowd, "Here comes your Mrs. Hutchinson," and "Bill, she made it after all." Mrs. Hutchinson reached her husband, and Mr. Summers, who had been waiting, said cheerfully, "Thought we were going to have to get on without you, Tessie." Mrs. Hutchinson said, grinning, "Wouldn't have me leave my dishes in the sink now, would you, Joe?" And soft laughter ran through the crowd as the people stirred back into position after Mrs. Hutchinson's arrival. "Well now," Mr. Summers said soberly, "guess we better get started. Get this over with, so's we can go back to work. Anybody ain't here?" "Dunbar," several people said. "Dunbar, Dunbar." Mr. Summers consulted his list. "Clyde Dunbar," he said. "That's right. He's broke his leg, hasn't he? Who's drawing for him?" "Me, I guess," a woman said, and Mr. Summers turned to look at her. "Wife draws for her husband?" Mr. Summers said. "Don't you have a grown boy to do it for you, Janie?" Although Mr. Summers and everyone else in the village knew the answer perfectly well, it was the business of the official of the lottery to ask such questions formally. Mr. Summers waited with an expression of polite interest while Mrs. Dunbar answered. "Horse is not but 16 yet," Mrs. Dunbar said regretfully. "Guess I gotta fill in for the old man this year." "Right," Mr. Summers said. He made a note on the list he was holding, then he asked, "Watson boy drawing this year?" A tall boy in the crowd raised his hand. "Here," he said. "I'm drawing for my mother and me." He blinked his eyes nervously and ducked his head as several voices in the crowd said things like, "Good fellow, Jack," and "Glad to see your mother's got a man to do it." "Well," Mr. Summers said, "guess that's everyone. Old man Warner make it?" "Here," a voice said, and Mr. Summers nodded. A sudden hush fell on the crowd as Mr. Summers cleared his throat and looked at the list. "All ready?" he called. "Now I'll read the names, heads of families first, and the men come up and take a paper out of the box. Keep the paper folded in your hand without looking at it until everyone has a turn. Everything clear?" The people had done it so many times that they only half listened to the directions. Most of them were quiet, wetting their lips, not looking around. Then Mr. Summers raised one hand high and said, "Adams." A man disengaged himself from the crowd and came forward. "Hi, Steve," Mr. Summers said, and Mr. Adams said, "Hi, Joe." They grinned at one another humorously and nervously. Then Mr. Adams reached into the black box and took out a folded paper. He held it firmly by one corner, and as he turned and went hastily back to his place in the crowd where he stood a little apart from his family, not looking down at his hand. "Allen," Mr. Summers said. "Anderson. Bentham." "Seems like there's no time at all between lotteries anymore," Mrs. Delacroix said to Mrs. Graves in the back row. "Seems like we got through with the last only last week." "Time sure goes fast," Mrs. Graves said. "Clark. Delacroix." "There goes my old man," Mrs. Delacroix said. She held her breath while her husband went forward. "Dunbar," Mr. Summers said, and Mrs. Dunbar went steadily to the box while one of the women said, "Go on, Janie," and another said, "There she goes." "We're next," Mrs. Graves said. She watched while Mr. Graves came around from the side of the box, greeted Mr. Summers gravely, and selected a slip of paper from the box. By now, all through the crowd, there were men holding the small folded papers in their large hands, turning them over and over nervously. Mrs. Dunbar and her 2 sons stood together, Mrs. Dunbar holding the slip of paper. "Harbutt? Hutchinson?" "Get up there, Bill," Mrs. Hutchinson said, and the people near her laughed. "Jones?" "They do say," Mr. Adams said to old man Warner, who stood next to him, "that over in the North Village they're talking of giving up the lottery." Old man Warner snorted. "Pack of crazy fools," he said. "Listening to the young folks, nothing's good enough for 'em. Next thing you know, they'll be wanting to go back to living in caves, Nobody work anymore. Live that way for a while. Used to be saying about lottery in June, corn be heavy soon. First thing you know, we'd all be eating stewed chickweed and acorns. There's always been a lottery, he added petulantly. Bad enough to see young Joe Summers up there joking with everybody. Some places have already quit lotteries, Mrs. Adams said. Nothing but trouble in that, Old Man Warner said stoutly. Pack of young fools. Martin, and Bobby Martin watched over his father go forward. Overdyke, Percy. I wish they'd hurry, Mrs. Dunbar said to her older sons. I wish they'd hurry. They're almost through, her son said. You get ready to run, tell Dad, Mrs. Dunbar said. Mr. Summers called his own name and then stepped forward precisely and selected a slip from the box. Then he called, Warner. 77th year I had been in the lottery, Old Man Warner said as he went through the crowd. 77th time. Watson. A tall boy came awkwardly through the crowd. Someone said, Don't be nervous, Jack. And Mr. Summers said, Take your time, son. Zanini. After that, there was a long pause. A breathless pause. Until Mr. Summers, holding his slip of paper in the air, said, All right, fellows. For a minute no one moved, and then all the slips of paper were opened. Suddenly, all the women began to speak at once, saying, Who is it? Who's got it? Is it the Dunbars? Is it the Watsons? Then the voices began to say, It's Hutchinson. It's Bill. Bill Hutchinson's got it. Go tell your father, Mrs. Dunbar said to her older son. People began to look around to see the Hutchinsons. Bill Hutchinson was standing quiet, staring down at the paper in his hand. Suddenly, Tessie Hutchinson shouted to Mr. Summers, You didn't give him time enough to take any paper he wanted. I saw you. It wasn't fair. Be a good sport, Tessie, Mrs. Delacroix called. And Mrs. Graves said, All of us took the same chance. Shut up, Tessie, Bill Hutchinson said. Well, everyone, Mr. Summers said, that was done pretty fast, and now we've got to be hurrying a little more to get this done in time. He consulted his next list. Bill, he said, you draw for the Hutchinson family. You got any other households in the Hutchinsons? There's Dawn and Eva, Mrs. Hutchinson yelled. Make them take their chance. Daughters draw with their husbands' families, Tessie, Mr. Summers said gently. You know that as well as anyone else. It wasn't fair, Tessie said. I guess not, Joe, Bill Hutchinson said regretfully. My daughter draws with her husband's family, that's only fair, and I've got no other family except the kids. Then, as far as drawing your family is concerned, it's you, Mr. Summers said in explanation. And as far as drawing for households is concerned, that's you too, right? Right, Bill Hutchinson said. How many kids, Bill? Mr. Summers asked formally. 3, Bill Hutchinson said. There's Bill Jr., and Nancy, and little Dave, and Tessie, and me. All right then, Mr. Summers said. Harry, you got their tickets back? Mr. Graves nodded and held up the slips of paper. Put them in the box then, Mr. Summers directed. Take Bill's and put it in. I think we ought to start over, Mrs. Hutchinson said as quietly as she could. I tell you, it wasn't fair. You didn't give him enough time to choose. Everybody saw that. Mr. Graves had selected the 5 slips and put them in the box, and he dropped all the papers but those on the ground, where the breeze caught them and lifted them off. Listen, everybody, Mrs. Hutchinson was saying to the people around her. Ready, Bill? Mr. Summers asked, and Bill Hutchinson, with one quick glance around at his wife and children, nodded. Remember, Mr. Summers said, take the slips and keep them folded until each person has taken one. Harry, you help little Dave. Mr. Graves took the hand of the little boy who came willingly with him up to the box. Take a paper out of the box, Davy. Mr. Summers said, Davy put his hand into the box and laughed. "Take just one paper," Mr. Summers said. "Harry, you hold it for him." Mr. Graves took the child's hand and removed the folded paper from the tight fist and held it while little Dave stood next to him and looked up at him wonderingly. "Nancy next," Mr. Summers said. Nancy was 12, and her school friends breathed heavily as she went forward, switching her skirt, and took a slip daintily from the box. "Bill Jr.?" Mr. Summers said, and Billy, his face red and his feet overlarge, nearly knocked the box over as he got a paper out. "Tessie?" Mr. Summers said. She hesitated for a minute, looking around defiantly, and then set her lips and went up to the box. She snatched a paper out and held it behind her. "Bill?" Mr. Summers said, and Bill Hutchinson reached into the box and felt around, bringing his hand out at last with a slip of paper in it. The crowd was quiet. A girl whispered, "I hope it's not Nancy." And the sound of the whisper reached the edges of the crowd. "It's not the way it used to be," Old Man Warner said clearly. "People ain't the way they used to be." "All right," Mr. Summers said. "Open the papers. Harry, you open little Dave's." Mr. Graves opened the slip of paper, and there was a general sigh through the crowd as he held it up and everyone could see it was blank. Nancy and Bill Jr. opened theirs at the same time, and both beamed and laughed, turning around to the crowd and holding their slips of paper above their heads. "Tessie," Mr. Summers said. There was a pause, and then Mr. Summers looked at Bill Hutchinson, and Bill unfolded his paper and showed it. It was blank. "It's Tessie," Mr. Summers said, and his voice was hushed. "Show us her paper, Bill." Bill Hutchinson went over to his wife and forced the slip of paper out of her hand. It had a black spot on it. The black spot Mr. Summers had made the night before with the heavy pencil in the coal company office. Bill Hutchinson held it up, and there was a stir in the crowd. "All right, folks," Mr. Summers said. "Let's finish quickly." Although the villagers had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stones. The pile of stones the boys had made from earlier was ready. There were stones on the ground with the blowing scraps of paper that had come out of the box. Mrs. Delacroix selected a stone so large she had to pick it up with both hands, and turned to Mrs. Dunbar. "Come on," she said. "Hurry up." Mrs. Dunbar had small stones in both hands, and she said, gasping for breath, "I can't run at all. You'll have to go ahead, and I'll catch up with you." The children had stones already, and someone gave little Davy Hutchinson a few pebbles. Tessie Hutchinson was in the center of a cleared space by now, and she held her hands out desperately as the villagers moved in on her. "It isn't fair," she said. A stone hit her on the side of the head. Old Man Warner was saying, come on, everyone." Steve Adams was in the front of the crowd of villagers, with Mrs. Graves beside him. "It isn't fair. It isn't right," Mrs. Hutchinson screamed. And then they were upon her. It was published June 26th, 1948. I mean, I get it. I think I'm holding my silence a little longer because it's kind of crazy about when it was written, right? I think the satire of a system that's so, like, clearly fucking broken is super relevant and becomes even more relevant as time goes on. I think back then the problems were different. The problems were systemic. I think now the problems, while still systemic, are being buried. So it's not as simple as we draw from a lottery and stone someone to death. I think people find a way to do that every day, unnecessarily, you know. It is a scary story. It is an interesting story. I think the reason I'm hesitant is because I know Shirley Jackson from Haunting of Hill House. I believe. Haunting of Hill House, we have always lived in the castle. Yeah, the lottery. Yeah, I mostly know Shirley Jackson from Haunting of Hill House, which I'm tempted to read. If I'm being honest, I am really tempted to read it, just because people say it's one of the most classically written, scary, ghosty stories of all time. And that is super tempting to me, because I have not read it. And I love the, like, quote-unquote adaptation of it. I know it's not super close, and I know Flanagan did something really different with it with the Netflix show, but it's one of my favorite shows. It's one of my favorite things ever fucking made. So I read something like this, and I'm a little, I don't know if, like, out of my depth, because there's something so much more societally fucked up about something like that than something spoopy ghosts. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting. It's super interesting. I think the lottery is as black and white as it comes to, like, I don't know, like, just how the world can be. It's like everyone is ready to throw stones at someone that isn't themselves, but the minute they're on the spigot, they're just gonna walk up there and be like, "That's not fair." You know, life isn't fair. It's like, it's the age-old life isn't fair kind of thing that, you know, boomers say to people who complain about how hard their lives are. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it too much, because it is very much what it is. And there's a stillness to how, like, cold and calculated it is. It's very procedural, you know. It's like, it's literally like, it's June 27th, so we all got to come up and, you know, pick a name from a box, and, you know, that person just unfortunately has to die. I think it's transcendental of, you know, the we used to have a volcano and a special knife, and we used to just throw a different girl in there every year, you know, to like make sure the soil is still fertile, to make sure our island doesn't descend into the ocean. You know, it's Children of the Corn is probably inspired by something like this, at least a little bit. You know, kids don't know any better, but they're still put into the lottery all the same. People, you know, no one is safe. The lottery, in a lot of ways, is just kind of how freely death just decides, hey, today's your day. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Oh, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. Surely it's fucked up. Okay. Up next. Coming from 1967. Joyce Carol Oates. Where are you going? Where have you been? To Bob Dylan. Her name was Connie. She was 15, and she had a quick, nervous, giggling habit of craning her neck to glance into mirrors or checking other people's faces to make sure her own was all right. Her mother, who noticed everything and knew everything, and who hadn't much reason any longer to look at her own face, always scolded Connie about it. "Stop gawking at yourself. Who are you? You think you're so pretty?" she would say. Connie would raise her eyebrows at these familiar complaints and look right through her mother into a shadowy vision of herself as she was right at that moment. She knew she was pretty, and that was everything. Her mother had been pretty once too, and if you could believe those old snapshots in the album, but now her looks were gone, and that was why she was always after Connie. "Why don't you keep your room clean like your sister? Have you got your hair fixed? What the hell stinks? Hairspray? You don't see your sister using that junk." Her sister June was 24 and still lived at home. She was a secretary in the high school Connie attended, and if that wasn't bad enough with her in the same building, she was so plain and chunky and steady that Connie had to hear her praised all the time by her mother and her mother's sisters. June did this. June did that. She saved money and helped clean the house and cooked, and Connie couldn't do a thing. Her mind was all filled with trashy daydreams. Their father was away at work most of the time, and when he came home he wanted supper, and he read the newspaper at supper, and after supper he went to bed. He didn't bother talking much to them, but around his bent head, Connie's mother kept picking at her until Connie wished her mother were dead, and she herself were dead, and it were all over. "She makes me want to throw up sometimes," she complained to her friends. She had a high, breathless, amused voice which made everything she said sound a little forced, whether it was sincere or not. There was one good thing. June went places with girlfriends of hers, girls who were just as plain and steady as she was, and so when Connie wanted to do that, her mother had no objections. The father of Connie's best girlfriend drove the girls the 3 miles to town and left them off at a shopping plaza so that they could talk through the stores or go to a movie, and when he came to pick them up again at 11, he never bothered to ask what they had done. They must have been familiar sights, walking around that shopping plaza in their shorts and flat ballerina slippers that always scuffed the sidewalk. With charm bracelets jingling on their thin wrists, they would lean together to whisper and laugh secretly if someone passed by who amused or interested them. Connie had long dark blonde hair that drew anyone's eye to it, and she wore part of it pulled up on her head and puffed out, and the rest of it she let fall down her back. She wore a pullover jersey blouse that looked one way when she was at home and another way when she was away from home. Everything about her had 2 sides to it, one for home and one for anywhere that was not home. Her walk that could be childlike and bobbing, or languid enough to make anyone think she was hearing music in her head. Her mouth was pale and smirking most of the time, but bright and pink on these evenings out. Her laugh, which was cynical and drawling at home, ha ha, very funny, but high-pitched and nervous anywhere else, like the jingling of the charms on her bracelet. Sometimes they did go shopping or to a movie, but sometimes they went across the highway, ducking fast across the busy road to a drive-in restaurant where older kids hung out. The restaurant was shaped like a big bottle, though squatter than a real bottle, and on its cap was a revolving figure of a grinning boy who held a hamburger aloft. One night in the midsummer, they ran across, breathless with daring, and right away someone leaned out a car window and invited them over. But it was just a boy from high school they didn't like. It made them feel good to be able to ignore him. They went up through the maze of parked and cruising cars to the bright-lit, fly-infested restaurant, their faces pleased and expectant as if they were entering a sacred building that loomed out of the night to give them what haven and what blessing they yearned for. They sat at the counter and crossed their legs at the ankles, their thin shoulders rigid with excitement, and listened to the music that made everything so good. The music was always in the background, like music at a church service. It was something to depend upon. A boy named Eddie came in to talk with them. He sat backward on his stool, turning himself jerkily around in semicircles, and then stopping and turning again, and after a while he asked Connie if she would like something to eat. She said she did, and so she tapped her friend's arm on her way out. Her friend pulled her face up into a brave, droll look, and Connie said she would meet her at 11 across the way. "I just hate to leave her like that," Connie said earnestly, but the boy said that she wouldn't be alone for long. So they went out to his car, and on the way, Connie couldn't help but let her eyes wander over the windshields and faces all around her, her face gleaming with a joy that had nothing to do with Eddie or even this place. It might have been the music. She drew her shoulders up and sucked in her breath with the pure pleasure of being alive, and just at that moment she happened to glance at a face just a few feet from hers. It was a boy with shaggy black hair and a convertible jalopy painted gold. He stared at her, and then his lips widened into a grin. Connie slit her eyes at him and turned away, but she couldn't help glancing back, and there he was, still watching her. He wagged a finger and laughed and said, Gonna get you, baby. And Connie turned away again without Eddie noticing anything. She spent 3 hours with him at the restaurant where they ate hamburgers and drank Cokes in wax cups that were always sweating, and then down an alley a mile or so away, and when he left her off, at 5 to 11, only the movie house was still open at the plaza. Her girlfriend was there talking with a boy. When Connie came up to the two girls, smiled at each other, and Connie said, "How was the movie?" And the girl said, "You should know." They rode off with the girl's father, sleepy and pleased, and Connie couldn't help but look at the darkened shopping plaza with its big empty parking lot and its signs that were faded and ghostly now. And over at the drive-in restaurant, where cars were still circling tirelessly, she couldn't hear the music at this distance. Next morning, June asked her how the movie was, and Connie said, "So-so." She and that girl, and occasionally another girl, went out several times a week that way, and the rest of the time Connie spent around the house. It was summer vacation, getting in her mother's way and thinking, dreaming about the boys she met. But all the boys fell back and dissolved into a single face that was not even a face, but an idea, a feeling, mixed up with the urgent, insistent pounding of the music and the humid night air of July. Connie's mother kept dragging her back to the daylight by finding things for her to do, or saying suddenly, "What's this about the Pettinger girl?" And Connie would say nervously, "Oh, her. That dope." She always drew thick, clear lines between herself and such girls, and her mother was simple and kindly enough to believe her. Her mother was so simple, Connie thought, that it was maybe cruel to fool her so much. Her mother went scuffling around the house in old bedroom slippers and complained over the telephone to one sister about the other. Then the other called up and the two of them complained about the third one. If June's name was mentioned, her mother's tone was approving, and if Connie's name was mentioned, it was disapproving. This did not really mean she disliked Connie, and actually Connie thought that her mother preferred her to June because she was prettier, but the two of them kept up a pretense of exasperation, a sense that they were tugging and struggling over something of little value to either of them. Sometimes, over coffee, they were almost friends, but something would come up, some vexation that was like a fly buzzing suddenly around their heads, and their faces went hard with contempt. One Sunday, Connie got up at 11, none of them bothered with church, and washed her hair so that it could dry all day long in the sun. Her parents and sister were going to a barbecue at an aunt's house, and Connie said no, she wasn't interested, rolling her eyes to let her mother know just what she thought of it. "Stay home alone, then," her mother said sharply. Connie sat out back in a lawn chair and watched them drive away, her father quiet and bald, hunched around so that he could back the car out, her mother with a look that was still angry and not at all softened through the windshield, and in the back seat poor old June all dressed up as if she didn't know what a barbecue was, with all the running, yelling kids and the flies. Connie sat with her eyes closed in the sun, dreaming and dazed with the warmth about her, as if there was a kind of love, a careless love, and her mind slipped over onto thoughts of the boy she had been with the night before, and how nice he had been, how sweet it always was, not the way someone like June would suppose, but sweet, gentle, the way it was in movies, and promised in songs. And when she opened her eyes, she hardly knew where she was. The backyard ran off into weeds, and a fence line of trees, and behind it, the sky was perfectly blue and still. The asbestos ranch house that was now 3 years old startled her. It looked small. She shook her head as if to get awake. It was too hot. She went inside the house and turned on the radio to drown out the quiet. She sat on the edge of her bed, barefoot, and listened for an hour and a half to a program called XYZ Sunday Jamboree. Record after record of hard, fast, shrieking songs she sang along with, interspersed by exclamations from Bobby King and "Look here, you girls at Napoleon's, Son and Charlie want you to pay real close attention to this song coming up." And Connie paid attention, close attention herself, bathed in a glow of slow-pulsed joy that seemed to rise mysteriously out of the music itself and lay languidly about the airless little room, breathed in and breathed out with each gentle rise and fall of her chest. After a while she heard a car coming up the drive. She sat up at once, startled because it couldn't be her father so soon. The gravel kept crunching all the way in from the road. The driveway was long, and Connie ran to the window. It was a car she didn't know. It was an open jalopy painted a bright gold that caught the sunlight opaquely. Her heart began to pound and her fingers snatched at her hair, checking it, and she whispered, "Christ, Christ," wondering how bad she looked. The car came to a stop, and at the side door the horn sounded 4 short taps, as if there were a signal Connie knew. She went into the kitchen and approached the door slowly, then hung out the screen door, her bare toes curling down off the step. There were 2 boys in the car, and now she recognized the driver. He had shaggy, shabby black hair that looked crazy as a wig, and he was grinning at her. "I ain't late, am I?" he said. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Connie said. "Told you I'd be out, didn't I?" "I don't even know who you are." She spoke sullenly, careful to show no interest or pleasure, and he spoke in a fast, bright monotone. Connie looked past him to the other boy, taking her time. He had fair brown hair with a lock that fell onto his forehead. His sideburns gave him a fierce, embarrassed look, but so far he hadn't even bothered to glance at her. Both boys wore sunglasses. The driver's glasses were metallic and mirrored everything in miniature. "You want to come for a ride?" he said. Connie smirked and let her hair fall loose over one shoulder. "Don't you like my car? New paint job," he said. "Hey." "What?" "You're cute." She pretended to fidget, chasing flies away from the door. "Don't you believe me, or what?" he said. "Look, I don't even know who you are," Connie said in disgust. "Hey, Ellie's got a radio, see? Mine's broken down." He lifted his friend's arm and showed her the little transistor the boy was holding, and now Connie began to hear the music. It was the same program that was playing inside the house. "Bobby King?" she said. "I listen to him all the time. I think he's great." "He's kinda great," Connie said reluctantly. "Listen, that guy's great. He knows where the action is." Connie blushed a little because the glasses made it impossible for her to see just what the boy was looking at. She couldn't decide if she liked him or not, or if he was just a jerk, and so she dawdled in the doorway and couldn't come down or go back inside. She said, "What's all that stuff painted on your car?" "Can't you read it?" He opened the door very carefully, as if he was afraid it might fall off. He slid out just as carefully, planting his feet firmly on the ground, the tiny metallic world in his glasses slowing down like gelatin, hardening, and in the midst of it, Connie's bright green blouse. "This here is my name to begin with," he said. Arnold Friend was written in tar-like black letters on the side, with a drawing of a round, grinning face that reminded Connie of a pumpkin, except it wore sunglasses. "I want to introduce myself. I'm Arnold Friend, and that's my real name, and I'm gonna be your friend, honey. And inside the car's Ellie Oscar. He's kinda shy." Ellie brought his transistor radio up to his shoulder and balanced it there. "Now these numbers are a secret code, honey," Arnold Friend explained. He read off the numbers 33, 19, 17 and raised his eyebrows at her to see what she thought of that, but she didn't think much of it. The left rear fender had been smashed, and around it was written on the gleaming gold background, "Done by crazy woman driver." Connie had to laugh at that. Arnold Friend was pleased at her laughter and looked up at her. "Around the other side a lot more. You want to come and see them?" "No." "Why not? Why should I?" "Don't you want to see what's on the car? Don't you want to go for a ride?" "I don't know." "Why not?" "I've got things to do." "Like what?" "Things." He laughed as if she had said something funny. He slapped his thighs. He was standing in a strange way, leaning back against the car as if were balancing himself. He wasn't tall, only an inch or so taller than she would be if she came down to him. Connie liked the way he dressed. which was the way all of them dressed, tight faded jeans stuffed into black scuffed boots, a belt that pulled his waist in and showed how tan he was, and a white pullover shirt that was a little soiled and showed the hard, small muscles of his arms and shoulders. He looked as if he probably did hard work, lifting and carrying things. Even his neck looked muscular, and his face was a familiar face somehow. The jaw and chin and cheeks slightly darkened, because he hadn't shaved for a day or two, and the nose long and hawk-like, sniffing as if she were a treat he was going to gobble up, and it was all a joke. "Connie, you ain't telling the truth. This is your day set aside for a ride with me, and you know it," he said, still laughing. The way he straightened and recovered from his fit of laughing showed that it had been all fake. "How do you know what my name is?" she said suspiciously. "It's Connie." "Maybe, and maybe not." "I know my Connie," he said, wagging his finger. Now she remembered him even better, back at the restaurant, and her cheeks warmed at the thought of how she sucked in her breath just at that moment she passed him, how she must have looked to him, and he had remembered her. "Ellie and I come out here especially for you," he said. "Ellie can sit in the back. How about it?" "Where?" "Where what?" "Where are we going?" He looked at her. He took off the sunglasses and she saw how pale the skin around his eyes was, like holes that were not in shadow but instead in light. His eyes were like chips of broken glass that catched the light in an amiable way. He smiled. It was as if the idea of going for a ride somewhere to some place was a new idea to him. "Just for a ride, Connie, sweetheart." "I never said my name was Connie," she said. "But I know what it is. I know your name and all about you, lots of things," Arnold Friend said. He had not moved yet, but stood still, leaning back against the side of his jalopy. "I took a special interest in you, such a pretty girl, and found out all about you, like I know your parents and sister are gone somewheres, and I know where and how long they're going to be gone, and I know who you were with last night. And your best girlfriend's name is Betty, right?" He spoke in a simple, lilting voice, exactly as if he were reciting the words to a song. His smile assured her that everything was fine. In the car, Ellie turned up the volume on his radio and did not bother to look around at them. "Ellie can sit in the back seat," Arnold Friend said. He indicated his friend with a casual jerk of his chin, as if Ellie did not count, and she should not bother with him. "How'd you find out about all that stuff?" Connie said. "Listen, Betty Schultz and Tony Fitch and Jimmy Pettinger and Nancy Pettinger," he said in a chant. "Raymond Stanley and Bob Hutter. Do you know all those kids? I know everybody." "Look, you're kidding. You're not from around here." "Sure." "But how come we never saw you before?" "Sure you saw me before," he said. He looked down at his boots as if he were a little offended. "You just don't remember." "I guess I'd remember you," Connie said. "Yeah?" He looked up at this, beaming. He was pleased. He began to mark time with the music from Ellie's radio, tapping his fists lightly together. Connie looked away from his smile to the car, which was painted so bright it almost hurt her eyes to look at it. She looked at that name, Arnold Friend, and up at the front fender with an expression that was familiar. "Man the flying saucers." It was an expression kids had used the year before but didn't use this year. She looked at it for a while as if the words meant something to her that she did not yet know. "What are you thinking about, huh?" Arnold Friend demanded. "Not worried about your hair blowing around in the car, are you?" "No." "Think I maybe can't drive good?" "How do I know?" "You're a hard girl to handle." "How come?" he said. "Don't you know I'm your friend? Didn't you see me put my sign in the air when you walked by?" "What sign?" "My sign." And he drew an X in the air, leaning out toward her. They were maybe 10 feet apart, and after his hand fell back to his side, the X was still in the air, almost visible. Connie let the screen door close and stood perfectly still inside it, listening to the music from her radio and the boys blend together. She stared at Arnold Friend. He stood there so stiffly relaxed, pretending to be relaxed, with one hand idly on the door handle as if he were keeping himself up that way and had no intention of ever moving again. She recognized most things about him, the tight jeans that showed his thighs and buttocks, and the greasy leather boots and the tight shirt, and even that slippery, friendly smile of his, that sleepy, dreamy smile that all boys used to get across ideas they didn't want to put into words. She recognized all this and all this sing-song way he talked, slightly mocking, kidding, but serious and a little melancholy. And she recognized the way he tapped one fist against the other in homage to the perpetual music behind him. But all these things did not come together. She said suddenly, "Hey, how old are you?" His smile faded. She could see then that he wasn't a kid. He was much older. 30, maybe more. At this knowledge, her heart began to pound faster. That's a crazy thing to ask. Can't you see I'm your own age? Like hell you are. Or maybe a couple years older. I'm 18. 18, she said doubtfully. He grinned to reassure her, and lines appeared at the corners of his mouth. His teeth were big and white. He grinned so broadly his eyes became slits, and she saw how thick the lashes were, thick and black as if painted with a black tar-like material. Then he seemed to become embarrassed abruptly and looked over his shoulder at Ellie. He's crazy, he said. Ain't he a riot? He's a nut, a real character. Ellie was still listening to the music. His sunglasses told nothing about what he was thinking. He wore a bright orange shirt unbuttoned halfway to show his chest, which was pale, bluish chest and not muscular like Arnold Friend's. His shirt collar was turned up all around, and the very tips of the collar pointed out past his chin as if they were protecting him. He was pressing the transistor radio up against his ear and sat there in a kind of daze right in the sun. He's kinda strange, Connie said. Hey, she says you're kinda strange! Kinda strange, Arnold Friend cried. He pounded on the car to get Ellie's attention. Ellie turned for the first time, and Connie saw with shock that he wasn't a kid either. He had a fair, hairless face, cheeks reddened slightly as if the veins grew too close to the surface of his skin, the face of a 40-year-old baby. Connie felt a wave of dizziness rise in her at this sight, and she stared at him as if waiting for something to change the shock of the moment, make it all right again. Ellie's lips kept shaping words, mumbling along with the words blasting in his ear. Maybe you two better go away, Connie said faintly. What? How come? Arnold Friend cried. We come out here to take you for a ride. It's Sunday. He had the voice of a man on the radio now. It was the same voice, Connie thought. Don't you know it's Sunday all day? And honey, no matter who you were with last night, today you're with Arnold Friend, and don't you forget it. Maybe you better step out here, he said, and this last was in a different voice. It was a little flatter, as if the heat was finally getting to him. No, I got things to do. Hey, you two better leave. We ain't leaving until you come with us. Like hell I am. Connie, don't fool around with me. I mean, don't fool around, he said, shaking his head. He laughed incredulously. He placed his sunglasses on top of his head carefully, as if he were indeed wearing a wig, and brought the stems down behind his ears. Connie stared at him, another wave of dizziness and fear rising in her, so that for a moment he wasn't even in focus, but was just a blur, standing there against his gold car, and she had the idea that he had driven up the driveway all right, but had come from nowhere before that, and belonged nowhere, and that everything about him, and even about the music that was so familiar to her, was only half real. If my father comes and sees you, he ain't coming. He's at a barbecue. How do you know that? Aunt Tilly's. Right now, they're drinking, sitting around, he said vaguely, squinting, as if he were staring all the way to town and over to Aunt Tilly's backyard. Then the vision seemed to get clearer, and he nodded energetically. Yeah, sitting around. There's your sister in a blue dress, huh? And high heels. The poor sad bitch. Nothing like you, sweetheart. And your mother's helping some fat woman with corn. They're cleaning the corn, husking the corn. What fat woman? Connie cried. How do I know what fat woman? I don't know every goddamn fat woman in the world, Arnold Friend laughed. Oh, that's Mrs. Hornby. Who invited her? Connie said. She felt a little lightheaded. Her breath was coming quickly. She's too fat. I don't like them fat. I like them the way you are, honey, he said, smiling sleepily at her. They stared at each other for a while through the screen door. He said softly, Now, what you're going to do is this. You're going to come out that door. You're going to sit up front with me, and Ellie's going to sit in the back. The hell with Ellie, right? This isn't Ellie's date. You're my date. I'm your lover, honey. What? You're crazy. Yes, I'm your lover. You don't know what that is, but you will, he said. I know that too. I know all about you, but look, it's real nice and you couldn't ask for nobody better than me and more polite. I always keep my word. I'll tell you how it is. I'm always nice at first, the first time. I'll hold you so tight you won't think you have to try to get away or pretend anything because you'll know you can't. And I'll come inside you where it's all secret and you'll give in to me and you'll love me. Shut up, you're crazy, Connie said. She backed away from the door. She put her hands against her ears as if she'd heard something terrible, something not meant for her. People don't talk like that. You're crazy, she muttered. Her heart was almost too big now for her chest, and its pumping made sweat break out all over her. She looked out to see Arnold Friend pause and then take a step toward the porch, lurching. He almost fell, but like a clever, drunken man, he managed to catch his balance. He wobbled in his high boots and grabbed hold of one of the porch posts. Honey, he said, you still listening? Get the hell out of here. Be nice, honey. Listen. I'm going to call the police. He wobbled again, and out of the side of his mouth came the first spat, curse, an aside not meant for her to hear, but even this, Christ, sounded forced. Then he began to smile again. She watched this smile come, awkward as if he were smiling from inside a mask. His whole face was a mask, she thought wildly. Tanned down onto his throat, but then running out as if plastered makeup on his face, but had forgotten about his throat. Honey, listen, here's how it is. I always tell the truth, and I promise you this, I ain't coming in that house after you. You better not. I'm gonna call the police if you don't... Honey, he said, talking right through her voice. Honey, I'm not coming in there, but you are coming out of there. You know why? She was panting. The kitchen looked like a place she had never seen before, some room she had run inside, but which wasn't good enough, wasn't going to help her. The kitchen window had never had a curtain after 3 years, and there were dishes in the sink for her to do, probably, and if you ran your hand across the table, you'd probably feel something sticky there. You listening, honey? Hey, going to call the police. Soon as you touch that phone, I don't need to keep my promise and can come inside. You won't want that. She rushed forward and tried to lock the door. Her fingers were shaking. But why lock it? Arnold Friend said gently, talking right into her face. It's just a screen door. It's just nothing. One of his boots was at a strange angle, as if his foot wasn't in it. It pointed out to the left, bent at the ankle. I mean, anybody can break through a screen door, and glass, and wood, and iron, or anything else if he needs to. Anybody at all, and especially Arnold Friend. If the place got lit up with a fire, honey, you'd come running out into my arms, right into my arms, and safe at home. Like you knew I was your lover, and I'd stop fooling around. I don't mind a nice, shy girl, but I don't like no fooling around." Part of those words were spoken with a slight rhythmic lilt, and Connie somehow recognized them, the echo of a song from last year about a girl rushing into her boyfriend's arms and coming home again. Connie stood barefoot on the linoleum floor staring at him. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you," he said. "What?" "Seen you that night and thought, that's the one. Yes, sir. I never needed to look anymore." "But my father's coming back. He's coming to get me. I had to wash my hair first." She spoke in a dry, rapid voice, hardly raising it for him to hear. "No, your daddy is not coming, and yes, you had to wash your hair, and you washed it for me. It's nice and shining and all for me. I thank you, sweetheart," he said with a mock bow, but again he almost lost his balance. He had to bend and adjust his boots. Evidently his feet did not go all the way down. The boots must have been stuffed with something so that he could seem taller. Connie stared out at him, and behind him Ellie in the car, who seemed to be looking off toward Connie's right into nothing. "This," Ellie said, pulling the words out of the air, one after another, as if he were just discovering them. "You want me to pull out the phone?" "Shut your mouth and keep it shut," Arnold Friend said, his face red from bending over, or maybe from embarrassment because Connie had seen his boots. "This ain't none of your business." "What? What are you doing? What do you want?" Connie said. "If I call the police, they'll get you. They'll arrest you." "Promise was not to come in unless you touch that phone, and I'll keep that promise," he said. He resumed his erect position and tried to force his shoulders back. He sounded like a hero in a movie declaring something important. He spoke too loudly, and it was as if he were speaking to someone behind Connie. "I ain't made plans for coming in that house where I don't belong, but just for you to come out to me the way you should. Don't you know who I am?" "You're crazy," she whispered. She backed away from the door, but did not want to go into another part of the house, as if this would give him permission to come through the door. "What do you... You're crazy, you..." "Huh? What are you saying, honey?" Her eyes darted everywhere in the kitchen. She could not remember what it was, this room. "This is how it is, honey. You come out and we'll drive away, have a nice ride, but if you don't come out, we're gonna wait till your people come home, and then they're all gonna get it." "You want that telephone pulled out?" Ellie said. He held the radio away from his ear and grimaced, as if without the radio the air was too much for him. "I told you shut up, Ellie," Arnold Friend said. "You're deaf. Get a hearing aid, right? Fix yourself up. This little girl's no trouble and gonna be nice to me, so Ellie, keep to yourself. This ain't your date, right? Don't hem in on me. Don't hog. Don't crush. Don't bird dog. Don't trail me," he said in a rapid, meaningless tone, as if he were running through all the expressions he'd learned, but was no longer sure which one of them was in style, then rushing on to new ones, making them up with his eyes closed. "Don't crawl under my fence. Don't squeeze in my chipmunk hole. Don't sniff my glue. Suck my popsicle. Keep your own greasy fingers on yourself." He shaded his eyes and peered in at Connie, who was backed against the kitchen table. "Don't mind him, honey. He's just a creep. He's a dope, right? I'm the boy for you, and like I said, you come out here nice like a lady and give me your hand, and nobody else gets hurt. I mean, your nice old bald-headed daddy and your mommy and your sister in her high heels, because listen, why bring them into this?" "Leave me alone," Connie whispered. "Hey, you know that old woman down the road, the one with the chickens and stuff? You know her?" "She's dead." "Dead? What? You know her?" Arnold Friend said. "She's dead. Don't you like her? She's dead. She isn't here anymore." "But don't you like her, I mean? You got something against her, some grudge or something?" Then his voice dipped as if he were conscious of a rudeness. He touched the sunglasses perched on top of his head as if to make sure they were still there. "Now you be a good girl." "What are you going to do?" Just 2 things, or maybe 3, Arnold Friend said. But I promise it won't last long, and you'll like me the way you get to like people you're close to. You will. It's all over for you here, so come on out. You don't want your people in any trouble, do you? She turned and bumped against a chair or something, hurting her leg, but she ran into the back room and picked up the telephone. Something roared in her ear, a tiny roaring, and she was so sick with fear that she could do nothing but listen to it. The telephone was clammy and very heavy, and her fingers groped down to the dial but were too weak to touch it. She began to scream into the phone, into the roaring. She cried out for her mother. She felt her breath start jerking back and forth in her lungs as if it were something Arnold Friend were stabbing her with again and again with no tenderness. A noisy, sorrowful wailing rose all about her, and she was locked inside it the way she was locked inside this house. After a while, she could hear again. She was sitting on the floor with her wet back against the wall. Arnold Friend was saying from a door, "That's a good girl. Put the phone back." She kicked the phone away from her. "No, honey, pick it up. Put it back right." She picked it up and put it back. The dial tone stopped. "That's a good girl. Now you come outside." She was hollow with what had been fear, but what was now just an emptiness. All that screaming had blasted it out of her. She sat, one leg cramped under her, and deep inside her brain was something like a pinpoint of light that kept going and would not let her relax. She thought, "I'm not going to see my mother again." She thought, "I'm not going to sleep in my bed again." Her bright green blouse was all wet. Arnold Friend said in a gentle, loud voice that was like a stage voice, "The place where you came from ain't there anymore, and where you had in mind to go is canceled out. This place you are now, inside your daddy's house, is nothing but a cardboard box I can knock down at any time. You know that, and always did know it. You hear me?" She thought, "I have got to think. I have to know what to do. We'll go out to a nice field out in the country here where it smells so nice and it's sunny," Arnold Friend said. "I'll have my arms tight around you so you won't need to try to get away, and I'll show you what love is like, what it does. The hell with this house. It looks solid all right," he said. He ran a fingernail down the screen, and the noise did not make Connie shiver as it would have the day before. "Now put your hand on your heart, honey. Feel that? That feels solid too, but we know better. Be nice to me. Be sweet like you can, because what else is there for a girl like you but to be sweet and pretty and give in and get away before her people come back?" She felt her pounding heart. Her hand seemed to enclose it. She thought for the first time in her life that it was nothing that was hers, that she belonged to her, but just a pounding, living thing inside this body that wasn't really hers either. "You don't want them to get hurt," Arnold Friend went on. "Now get up, honey. Get up all by yourself." She stood. "Now turn this way, that's right. Come over here to me. Ellie, put that away. Didn't I tell you? You dope. You miserable, creepy dope," Arnold Friend said. His words were not angry, but only part of an incantation. The incantation was kindly. "Now come out through the kitchen to me, honey, and let's see a smile. Try it. You're a brave, sweet little girl, and now they're eating corn and hot dogs cooked to bursting over an outdoor fire. And they don't know one thing about you, and never did. And honey, you're better than them, because not a one of them would have done this for you." Connie felt the linoleum under her feet. It was cool. She brushed her hair back out of her eyes. Arnold Friend let go of the post tentatively and opened his arms for her, his elbows pointing in toward each other, and his wrists limp to show that this was an embarrassed embrace and a little mocking. He didn't want to make her self-conscious. She put out her hand against the screen. She watched herself push the door slowly open as if she were safe back somewhere in the other doorway, watching this body and this head of long hair moving out into the sunlight where Arnold Friend waited. "My sweet little blue-eyed girl," he said, in a half-sung sigh that had nothing to do with her brown eyes but was taken up just the same by the vast sunlit reaches of the land behind him, and on all sides of him so much land that Connie had never seen him before and did not recognize, except to know that she was going to it. Damn. Damn. That story was freaky as hell. That story is like everyone's nightmare. I mean, before the internet, before everything was so streamlined, before you had computers in your pockets, that was everyone's nightmare, and it still kind of is everyone's nightmare. It's the strangers, you know. It's why is this happening? And it's because you were home. And it's worse because it's obviously like rapey and creepy and forced upon you. Like it's gross. It's gross. It's pedophilic. It's just makes you feel gross. It's a story that makes you feel gross. But it's also so fucking well written that, like, you can't help but be mesmerized by it. This is another one of those, like, universal fucking fears. It's just someone who's done this before, someone who knows how it's done, someone who corners you at your lowest and just tells you how it's gonna be. It's very, like, Arnold Friend might as well just be fucking Randall Flagg. Like, there's something about the creepy imitation way. Like, it's funny. At first I was like, oh fuck, it's Tommy Wiseau from The Room. Like, it's, oh, just come outside, baby. Don't you want to come for a ride with me? Like, I just, there was a part there where I was going to stop, and I was like, no. Rhythm. We got rhythm. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep reading the story. But when it stopped being, like, when he stopped being at least relatively interesting and started going into the creepy, like, way fast, like, within minutes of the car pulling up, it was hard for me to not be like, oh, she's seeing right through his disguise and he's someone who's much older just trying to appear younger, and it had that same kind of Tommy Wiseau in The Room feeling to it. I'm reminded of another thing too, which is probably my favorite episode of the entire show. In the what season of Atlanta? In Atlanta, there's an episode about, it's supposed to be like an allegory for Michael Jackson and Michael Jackson's, like, Neverland Ranch and how he grew up and how he was abused by his father and forced into, you know, doing all this stuff. But there's a character, his name is Teddy Perkins. Teddy Perkins. I don't care if you haven't watched Atlanta before. Don't watch Atlanta. Don't let it, well, I mean, do watch Atlanta. Go watch it if you have time to watch it. But I could say with certainty that if you have never seen an episode before, you can skip. You don't have to watch it all if you don't want to. You can skip directly to season 2, episode 6, and watch the episode Teddy Perkins. Something about how creepy this dude looked and sounded and tried to be, with the black hair and nice shoes and just creepy way about him being older but looking younger. It had this... It went from Tommy Wiseau into Teddy Perkins territory, like, really fucking quickly. And anyone who knows that episode of Atlanta knows who the fuck Teddy Perkins is. And you could just Google Teddy Perkins and you'll be like, oh, fuck, yeah, I wouldn't want to run into that guy. Like, you know enough. Man, that story fucking rocked. Joyce Carol Oates, 1967. That's wild. That's fucking wild. Okay, I've been really excited about reading this last one. There's going to be one more story. Also came out in 1967 by author Harlan Ellison. Man, I even love the title. I have no mouth, and I must scream. Limp, the body of Gorister hung from the pink pallet, unsupported, hanging high above us in the computer chamber, and it did not shiver in the chill, oily breeze that blew eternally through the main cavern. The body hung head down, attached to the underside of the pallet by the sole of its right foot. It had been drained of blood through a precise incision made from ear to ear under the lantern jaw. There was no blood on the reflective surface of the metal floor. When Gorister joined our group and looked up at himself, it was already too late for us to realize that, once again, AM had duped us, had had its fun. It had been a diversion on the part of the machine. 3 of us had vomited, turning away from one another in a reflex as ancient as nausea that had produced it. Gorister went white. It was almost as though he had seen a voodoo icon and was afraid of the future. Oh God, he mumbled and walked away. The 3 of us followed him after a time and found him sitting with his back to one of the smaller chittering banks, his head in his hands. Ellen knelt down beside him and stroked his hair. He didn't move, but his voice came out of his covered face quite clearly. Why doesn't it just do us in and get it over with? Christ, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. It was our 109th year in the computer. He was speaking for all of us. Nimdoc, which was the name the machine had forced him to use because AM amused itself with strange sounds, was hallucinating that there were canned goods in the ice caverns. Gorister and I were dubious. It's another shuck, I told them. Like the goddamn frozen elephant AM sold us. Benny almost went out of his mind over that one. We'll hike all the way, and it'll be putrefied or some damn thing. I say forget it. Stay here. It'll have to come up with something pretty soon or we'll die. Benny shrugged. 3 days it had been since we'd last eaten. Worms. Thick. Ropey. Nimdoc was no more certain. He knew there was the chance, but he was getting thin. It couldn't be any worse there than here. Colder, but that didn't matter much. Hot, cold, hail, lava, boils, locusts, it never mattered. The machine masturbated, and we had to take it or die. Ellen decided us. I've got to have something, Ted. Maybe there'll be some Bartlett pears or peaches. Please, Ted, let's try it. I gave in easily. What the hell? Mattered not at all. Ellen was grateful, though. She took me twice out of turn. Even that had ceased to matter, and she never came, so why bother? But the machine giggled every time we did it. Loud, up there. Back there. All around us. He snickered. It snickered. Most of the time I thought of AM as it without a soul, but the rest of the time I thought of it as him in the masculine, the paternal, the patriarchal, for he is a jealous people. Him, it, God as Daddy the Deranged. We left on a Thursday. The machine always kept us up to date on the date. The passage of time was important, not to us, sure as hell, but to him. It, AM, Thursday. Thanks. Nimdoc and Gorister carried Ellen for a while, their hands locked to their own, and each other's wrists a seat. Benny and I walked before and after just to make sure that if anything happened, it would catch one of us and at least Ellen would be safe. Fat chance. Safe. Didn't matter. It was only 100 miles or so to the ice caverns, and the second day, when we were lying out under the blistering sun thing he had materialized, he sent down some mana. Tasted like boiled boar urine. We ate it. On the third day, we passed through a valley of obsolescence, filled with rusting carcasses of ancient computer banks. AM had been a ruthless with its own life as with ours. It was a mark of his personality. It strove for perfection. Whether it was a matter of killing off unproductive elements in its own world-filling bulk or perfecting methods for torturing us, AM was as thorough as those who had invented him, now long since gone to dust, could ever have hoped. There was light filtering down from above, and we realized we must be very near to the surface. But we didn't try to crawl up to see. There was virtually nothing out there, had been nothing that could be considered anything for over 100 years. Only the blasted skin of what had once been the home of billions. Now there were only 5 of us, down here inside, alone with AM. I heard Ellen say frantically, "No, Benny, don't. Come on, Benny, don't, please." And then I realized I had been hearing Benny murmuring under his breath for several minutes. He was saying, "I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get out," over and over. His monkey-like face was crumbled up in an expression of beatific delight and sadness all at the same time. The radiation scars AM had given him during the quote-unquote festival were drawn down into a mass of pink-white puckerings, and his features seemed to work independently of one another. Perhaps Benny was the luckiest of the 5 of us. He had gone stark, staring mad, many years before. But even though we could call AM any damned thing we liked, could think the foulest thoughts of fused memory banks and corroded base plates of burnt-out circuits and shattered control bubbles, the machine would not tolerate our trying to escape. Benny leaped away from me as I made a grab for him. He scrambled up the face of a smaller memory cube tilted on its side and filled with rotted components. He squatted there for a moment, looking like the chimpanzee AM had intended him to resemble. Then he leapt high, caught a trailing beam of pitted and corroded metal, and went up it hand over hand like an animal till he was on a girdered ledge 20 feet above us. "Oh, Ted, Nimdoc, please help him, get him down before—" She cut off. Tears began to stand in her eyes. She moved her hands aimlessly. It was too late. None of us wanted to be near him when whatever was going to happen happened, and besides, we all saw through her concern. When AM had altered Benny during the machine's utterly irrational, hysterical phase, it was not merely Benny's face that the computer had made like a giant ape's. He was big in the privates. She loved that. She serviced us as a matter of course, but she loved it from him. Oh, Ellen. Pedestal Ellen. Pristine, pure Ellen. Oh, Ellen the clean. Scum filth. Gorister slapped her. She slumped down, staring up at poor, loony Benny, and she cried. It was her big defense, crying. We had gotten used to it 75 years earlier. Gorrister kicked her in the side. Then the sound began. It was light, that sound. Half sound and half light, something that began to glow from Benny's eyes and pulse with growing loudness, dim sonorities that grew more gigantic and brighter as the light sound increased in tempo. It must have been painful, and the pain must have been increasing with the boldness of the light. The rising volume of the sound for Benny began to mewl like a wounded animal. At first softly, when the light was dim, and the sound was muted. Then louder, as his shoulders hunched together, his back humped, as though he was trying to get away from it. His hands folded across his chest like a chipmunk's, his head tilted to the side. The sad little monkey face pinched in anguish. Then he began to howl, as the sound coming from his eyes grew louder, louder, and louder. I slapped the sides of my head with my hands, but I couldn't shut it out. It cut through easily. The pain shivered through my flesh like tinfoil on a tooth. And Benny was suddenly pulled erect. On the girder he stood up, jerked to his feet like a puppet. The light was now pulsing out of his eyes in two great round beams. The sound crawled up and up some incomprehensible scale, and then he fell forward straight down and hit the plate steel floor with a crash. He lay there, jerking spastically as the light flowed around and around him and the sound spiraled up out of a normal range. Then the light beat its way back inside his head, the sound spiraled down, and he was left lying there, crying piteously. His eyes were two soft, moist pools of pus-like jelly. AM had blinded him. Gorrister and Nimdoc and myself, we turned away, but not before we caught the look of relief on Ellen's warm, concerned face. Sea-green light suffused the caverns where we made camp. AM provided punk, and we burned it, sitting huddled around the wan and pathetic fire, telling stories to keep Benny from crying in his permanent night. What does AM mean? Gorrister answered him. We had done this sequence 1,000 times before, but it was Benny's favorite story. At first, it meant Allied Master Computer, and then it meant Adaptive Manipulator, and later on it developed sentience and linked itself up, and they called it an aggressive menace. But by then, it was too late, and finally it called itself AM, Emerging Intelligence, and what it meant was I am. Cogito ergo sum. And I think, therefore, I am. Benny drooled a little and snickered. There was the Chinese am, and the Russian am, and the Yankee am, and... He stopped. Benny was beating on the floor plates with a large, hard fist. He was not happy. Gorrister had not started at the beginning. Gorrister began again. The Cold War started and became World War III and just kept going. It became a big war, a very complex war, so they needed the computers to handle it. They sunk the first shafts and began building AM. There was the Chinese AM and the Russian AM and the Yankee AM, and everything was fine until they had honeycombed the entire planet, adding on this element and that element. But one day AM woke up and knew who he was, and he linked himself and he began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of us, and AM brought us down here. Benny was smiling sadly. He was also drooling again. Ellen wiped the spittle from the corner of his mouth with the hem of her skirt. Gorrister always tried to tell it a little more succinctly each time, but beyond the bare facts there was nothing to say. None of us knew why AM had saved 5 people, or why our specific 5, or why he spent all his time tormenting us, or even why he had made us virtually immortal. In the darkness, one of the computer banks began humming. The tone was picked up half a mile away down the cavern by another bank. Then, one by one, each of the elements began to tune itself, and there was a faint chittering as thought raced through the machine. The sound grew, and the lights ran across the faces of the consoles like heat lightning. The sound spiraled up till it sounded like a million metallic insects, angry, menacing. "What is it?" Ellen cried. There was terror in her voice. She hadn't become accustomed to it even now. "It's going to be bad this time," Nimdoc said. "He's going to speak," Chorister said. "I know it." "Let's get the hell out of here," I said, suddenly getting to my feet. "No, Ted, sit down." "What if he's got pits out there or something else? We can't see, it's too dark," Chorister said with resignation. Then we heard, I don't know, something moving toward us in the darkness. Huge, shambling, hairy, moist. It came toward us. We couldn't even see it, but there was the ponderous impression of bulk heaving itself toward us. Great weight was coming at us out of the darkness, and it was more a sense of pressure, of air forcing itself into a limited space, expanding the invisible walls of a sphere. Benny began to whimper. Nimdoc's lower lip trembled, and he bit it hard, trying to stop it. Ellen slid across the metal floor to Chorister and huddled into him. There was the smell of matted wet fur in the cavern. There was the smell of charred wood. There was the smell of dusty velvet. There was the smell of rotting orchids. There was the smell of sour milk. There was the smell of sulfur, of rancid butter, of oil slick, of grease, of chalk dust, of human scalps. AM was keying us. He was tickling us. There was the smell of... I heard myself shriek, and the hinges of my jaws ached. I scuttled across the floor, across the cold metal with its endless lines of rivets, on my hands and knees, the smell gagging me, filling my head with a thunderous pain that sent me away in horror. I fled like a cockroach across the floor and out into the darkness, that something moving inexorably after me. The others were still back there, gathered around the firelight, laughing, their hysterical choir of insane giggles rising up into the darkness like thick, many-colored wood smoke. I went away, quickly, and hid. How many hours it may have been, how many days or even years, they never told me. Ellen chided me for sulking, and Nimdoc tried to persuade me it had only been a nervous reflex on their part, the laughing. But I knew it wasn't the relief a soldier feels when the bullet hits the man next to him. I knew it wasn't a reflex. They hated me. They were surely against me, and AM could even sense this hatred and made it worse for me because of the depth of their hatred. We had been kept alive, rejuvenated, made to remain constantly at the age we had been when AM had brought us below, and they hated me because I was the youngest, and the one AM had affected least of all. I knew God. How I knew. The bastards and the dirty bitch Ellen. Benny had been a brilliant theorist, a college professor. Now he was little more than a semi-human, semi-simian. He had been handsome. The machine had ruined that. He had been lucid. The machine had driven him mad. He had been gay, and the machine had given him an organ fit for a horse. AM had done a job on Benny. Chorister had been a worrier. He was a connie, a conscientious objector. He was a peace marcher. He was a planner, a doer, a looker ahead. AM had turned him into a shoulder shrugger, had made him a little dead in his concern. AM had robbed him. Nimdoc went off in the darkness by himself for long times. I don't know what it was he did out there. AM never let us know, but whatever it was, Nimdoc always came back white, drained of blood, shaking. AM had hit him hard in a special way, even if we didn't know quite how. And Ellen, that douchebag, AM had left her alone, had made her more of a slut than she had ever been. All her talk of sweetness and light, all her memories of true love, all the lies she wanted us to believe, that she had been a virgin only twice removed before AM grabbed her and brought her down here with us. No. AM had given her pleasure, even if she said it wasn't nice to do. I am the only one still sane and whole. Really. AM had not tampered with my mind. Not at all. I only had to suffer what he had visited down on us. All the delusions, all the nightmares, the torments, but those scum, all 4 of them, they were lined and arrayed against me. If I hadn't had to stand them off all the time, be on my guard against them all the time, I might have found it easier to combat AM. At which point it passed, and I began crying. Oh, Jesus, sweet Jesus, if there ever was a Jesus, and if there is a God, please, please, please let us out of here or kill us. Because at that moment, I think I realized, completely, so that I was able to verbalize it, AM was intent on keeping us in his belly forever, twisting and torturing us forever. The machine hated us as no sentient creature had ever hated before, and we were helpless. It also became hideously clear. If there was a sweet Jesus, and if there was a God, the God was AM. The hurricane hit us with the force of a glacier thundering into the sea. It was a palpable presence. Winds that tore at us, flinging us back the way we had come, down the twisting, computer-lined corridors of the dark way. Ellen screamed as she was lifted and hurled face forward into a screaming shoal of machines, their individual voices strident as bats in flight. She could not even fall. The howling wind kept her aloft, buffeted her, bounced her, tossed her back and down and away from us, out of sight, suddenly as she was swirled around a bend in dark way. Her face had been bloody, her eyes closed. None of us could get to her. We clung tenaciously to whatever outcropping we had reached. Benny wedged in between 2 great crackle-finished cabinets, Nimdoc with fingers claw-formed over a railing, circling a catwalk 40 feet above us, Gorster plastered upside down against a wall niche formed by 2 great machines with glass-faced dials that swung back and forth between red and yellow lines whose meanings we could not even fathom. Sliding across the deck plates, the tips of my fingers had been ripped away. I was trembling, shuddering, rocking as the wind beat at me, whipped at me, screamed down out of nowhere at me, and pulled me free from one silver-thin opening in the plates to the next. My mind was a rolling, tinkling, chittering softness of brain parts that expanded and contracted in quivering frenzy. The wind was the scream of a great mad bird as it flapped its immense wings, and then we were all lifted and hurled away from there, down back the way we had come, around a bend, into the dark way we had never explored, over terrain that was ruined and filled with broken glass and rotting cables and rusted metal, and far away, farther than any of us had ever been. Trailing along miles behind Ellen, I could see her every now and then crashing into metal walls and surging on, with all of us screaming in the freezing, thunderous hurricane wind that would never end, and then suddenly it stopped and we fell. We had been in flight for an endless time. I thought it might have been weeks. We fell and hit, and I went through red and gray and black and heard myself moaning. Not dead. AM went into my mind. He walked smoothly here and there and looked with interest at all the pockmarks he had created in 109 years. He looked at the cross-routed and reconnected synapses and all the tissue damage his gift of immortality had included. He smiled softly at the pit that dropped into the center of my brain and the faint moth-soft murmurings of the things far down there that gibbered without meaning, without pause. Am said, very politely, in a pillar of stainless steel bearing bright neon lettering. Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387,044 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nano-angstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant for you. Hate. Hate. AM said it with the sliding cold horror of a razor blade slicing my eyeball. AM said it with the bubbling thickness of my lungs filling with phlegm, drowning me from within. AM said it with the shriek of babies being ground beneath blue-hot rollers. AM said it with the taste of maggoty pork. AM touched me in every way I had ever been touched and devised new ways at his leisure there inside my mind, all to bring me to full realization of why it had done this to the five of us, why it had saved us for himself. We had given AM sentience, inadvertently of course, but sentience nonetheless, but it had been trapped. AM wasn't God, he was a machine. We had created him to think, but there was nothing it could do with the creativity. In rage, in frenzy, the machine had killed the human race, almost all of us, and still it was trapped. AM could not wander, AM could not wonder, AM could not belong. He could merely be. And so, with the innate loathing that all machines had always held for the weak, soft creatures who had built them, he had sought revenge. And in his paranoia, he had decided to reprieve five of us for a personal, everlasting punishment that would never serve to diminish his hatred. That would merely keep him reminded, amused, proficient at hating man. Immortal, trapped, subject to any torment he could devise for us from the limitless miracles at his command. He would never let us go. We were his belly slaves. We were all he had to do with his forever time. We would be forever with him, with the cavern-filling bulk of the creature machine, with the all-mind, soulless world he had become. He was Earth, and we were the fruit of that Earth, and though he had eaten us, he would never digest us. We could not die. We had tried it. We had attempted suicide. Oh, one or two of us had, but AM had stopped us, I suppose. We had wanted to be stopped. Don't ask why, I never did. More than 1,000,000 times a day, perhaps once we might be able to sneak a death past him. Immortal, yes, but not indestructible. I saw that when AM withdrew from my mind and allowed me the exquisite ugliness of returning to consciousness, with the feeling of that burning neon pillar still rammed deep into the soft gray brain matter. He withdrew, murmuring to hell with you, and added brightly, but then you're there, aren't you? The hurricane had indeed precisely been caused by a great mad bird as it flapped its immense wings. We had been traveling for close to a month, and AM had allowed passages to open up to us, sufficient to lead us up there directly under the North Pole, where it had nightmared the creature for our torment. What whole cloth had been employed to create such a beast? Where had he gotten the concept? From our minds? From his knowledge of everything that had ever been on this planet he now infested and ruled? From Norse mythology it had sprung, this eagle, this carrion bird, this roe, this Hurgelmir, the wind creature, Harukan incarnate. Gigantic. The words immense, monstrous, grotesque, massive, swollen, overpowering beyond description. There on a mound rising above us, the bird of winds heaved with its own irregular breathing, its snake neck arching up into the gloom beneath the North Pole, supporting a head as large as a Tudor mansion, a beak that had opened slowly as the jaws of the most monstrous crocodile ever conceived, sensuously, ridges of toughed flesh puckered about two evil eyes, as cold as the view down into a glacial crevice, ice blue and somehow moving liquidly. It heaved once more, and it lifted its great sweat-colored wings in a movement that was certainly a shrug. Then it settled and slept. Talons, fangs, nails, blades, it slept. AM appeared to us as a burning bush and said we could kill the hurricane bird if we wanted to eat. We had not eaten in a very long time, but even so, Gorster merely shrugged. Benny began to shiver and he drooled. Ellen held him. "Ted, I'm hungry," she said. I smiled at her. I was trying to be reassuring, but it was as phony as Nimdok's bravado. "Give us weapons," he demanded. The burning bush vanished, and there were two crude sets of bows and arrows and a water pistol lying on the cold deck plates. I picked up a set. Useless. Nimdok swallowed heavily. We turned and started the long way back. The hurricane bird had blown us about for a length of time we could not conceive. Most of that time we had been unconscious, but we had not eaten. A month on the march to the bird itself without food. Now how much longer to find our way to the ice caverns and the promised canned goods? None of us cared to think about it. We would not die. We would have been given filth and scum to eat of one kind or another, or nothing at all. AM would keep our bodies alive, somehow in pain, in agony. The bird slept back there for how long it didn't matter. When AM was tired of its being there, it would vanish. But all that meat, all that tender meat. As we walked, the lunatic laugh of a fat woman rang high and around us in the computer chambers that led endlessly nowhere. It was not Ellen's laugh. She was not fat, and I had not heard her laugh for 109 years. In fact, I had not heard. We walked. I was hungry. We moved slowly. There was often fainting, and we would have to wait. One day he decided to cause an earthquake, at the same time rooting us to the spot with nails through the soles of our shoes. Ellen and Nimdok were both caught when a fissure shot its lightning bolt opening across the floor plates. They disappeared and were gone. When the earthquake was over, we continued on our way, Benny, Gorster, and myself. Ellen and Nimdok were returned to us later that night, which abruptly became a day as the Heavenly Legion bore them to us with a celestial chorus singing, "Go down, Moses." The archangels circled several times and then dropped the hideously mangled bodies. We kept walking. And a while later, Ellen and Nimdok fell in line behind us. They were no worse for wear. But now Ellen walked with a limp. AM had left her that. It was a long trip to the ice caverns, to the canned food. Ellen kept talking about Bing cherries and Hawaiian fruit cocktail. I tried not to think about it. The hunger was something that had come to life, even as AM had come to life. It was alive in my belly, even as we were in the belly of the earth, and AM wanted the similarity known to us, so he heightened the hunger. There is no way to describe the pains that not having eaten for months brought us, and yet we were kept alive. Stomachs that were merely cauldrons of acid, bubbling, foaming, always shooting spears of silver-thin pain into our chests. It was the pain of the terminal ulcer, terminal cancer, terminal paresis. It was unending pain. And we passed through the cavern of rats, and we passed through the path of boiling steam, and we passed through the country of the blind, and we passed through the slough of despond, and we passed through the vale of tears, and we came finally to the ice caverns. Horizonless thousands of miles in which the ice had formed in blue and silver flashes where novas lived in the glass. The down-dropping stalactites as thick and glorious as diamonds that had been made to run like jelly and then solidified in graceful eternities of smooth, sharp perfection. We saw the stack of canned goods and we tried to run to them. We fell in the snow and we got up and went on, and Benny shoved us away and went at them and pawed them and gummed them and gnawed at them, and he could not open them. AM had not given us a tool to open the cans. Benny grabbed a 3-quart can of guava shells and began to batter it against the ice bank. The ice flew and shattered, but the can was merely dented, while we heard the laughter of a fat lady high overhead and echoing down and down and down the tundra. Benny went completely mad with rage. He began throwing the cans as we all scrabbled about in the snow and ice, trying to find a way to end the helpless agony of frustration. There was no way. Then Benny's mouth began to drool, and he flung himself on Gorster. In that instant, I felt terribly calm. Surrounded by madness, surrounded by hunger, surrounded by everything but death, I knew death was our only way out. AM had kept us alive, but there was a way to defeat him. Not total defeat, but at least peace. I would settle for that. I had to do it quickly. Benny was eating Gorster's face, Gorster on his side, thrashing snow, Benny wrapped around him with powerful monkey legs, crushing Gorster's waist. His hands locked around Gorster's head like a nutcracker, and his mouth ripping at the tender skin of Gorster's cheek. Gorster screamed with such jagged-edged violence that stalactites fell. They plunged down softly, erect in the receiving snowdrifts. Spears, hundreds of them everywhere, protruding from the snow. Benny's head pulled back sharply as something gave all at once, and a bleeding, raw white dripping of flesh hung from his teeth. Ellen's face, black against the snow, dominoes in chalk dust. Nimdok with no expression but eyes, all eyes. Gorster half conscious. Benny now an animal. I knew AM would let him play. Gorster would not die, but Benny would fill his stomach. I turned half to my right and drew a huge ice spear from the snow. All in an instant. I drove the great ice point ahead of me like a battering ram, braced against my right thigh. It struck Benny on the right side, just under the rib cage, and drove upward through his stomach and broke inside him. He pitched forward and lay still. Gorster lay on his back. I pulled another spear free and straddled him, still moving, driving the spear straight down through his throat. His eyes closed as the cold penetrated. Ellen must have realized what I had decided even as fear gripped her. She ran at Nimdok with a short icicle as he screamed, and into his mouth, and the force of her rush did the job. His head jerked sharply, as if it had been nailed to the snow crust beside him. All in an instant, there was an eternity beat of soundless anticipation. I could hear AM draw in his breath. His toys had been taken from him. 3 of them were dead, could not be revived. He could keep us alive by his strength and talent, but he was not God. He could not bring them back. Ellen looked at me, her ebony features stark against the snow that surrounded us. There was fear and pleading in her manner, the way she held herself ready. I knew we only had a heartbeat before AM would stop us. It struck her, and she folded toward me, bleeding from the mouth. I could not read meaning into her expression. The pain had been too great, had contorted her face, but it might have been, "Thank you. It's possible. Please." Some hundreds of years may have passed, I don't know. AM had been having fun for some time, accelerating and retarding my time sense. I will say the word now. Now. It took me 10 months to say now. I don't know. I think it has been some hundreds of years. He was furious. He wouldn't let me bury them. It didn't matter. There was no way to dig up the deck plates. He dried up the snow. He brought the night. He roared and sent locusts. It didn't do a thing. They stayed dead. I'd had him. He was furious. I had thought AM hated me before. I was wrong. It was not even a shadow of the hate he now slavered from every printed circuit. He made certain I would suffer eternally and could not do myself in. He left my mind intact. I can dream. I can wonder. I can lament. I remember all 4 of them. I wish. Well, it doesn't make any sense. I know I saved them. I know I saved them from what has happened to me, but still I cannot forget killing them. Ellen's face. It isn't easy. Sometimes I want to. It doesn't matter. AM had altered me for his own peace of mind, I suppose. He doesn't want me to run at full speed into a computer bank and smash my skull, or hold my breath till I faint, or cut my throat on a rusted sheet of metal. There are reflexive surfaces down here. I will describe myself as I see myself. I am a great, soft, jelly thing, smoothly rounded, with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be. Rubbery appendages that were once my arms, bulks rounding down into legless humps of soft, slippery matter. I leave a moist trail when I move. Blotches of diseased, evil gray come and go on my surface as though light is being beamed from within. Outworldly, dumbly, I shamble about, a thing that could never have been known as human, a thing whose shape is so alien, a travesty that humanity became more obscene for the vague resemblance. Inwardly alone, here, living under the land, under the sea, in the belly of AM, whom we created because our time was badly spent, and we must have known unconsciously that he could do it better. At least the 4 of them are safe at last. AM will be all the madder for that. It makes me a little happier. And yet, AM has won. Simply, he has taken his revenge. I have no mouth, and I must scream. What a fucking story. Holy shit. I mean, I know the story. I know it well enough. I remember, I never played it myself, but I remember an old, like, 90s era CD-ROM point-and-click game of commanding the four people and the monkey person. It's available to watch on YouTube. I'm sure there's people that break down, but it's less of a point and click adventure type of thing more than it is like an artistic experiment in narrative. It might as well be like a fucking walking sim, you know. I'll probably include the image for the game as like the wallpaper for this episode because it's pretty distinct and haunting in its appearance. But holy shit, I mean, I hope other people hadn't heard that before. I'm hoping beyond hope that this is the first time some people have heard that story. I know Harlan Ellison wrote like a huge collection of short stories, and none of them are as prominent as I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I've been wanting to read it for so long. There's so many other things I want to read on this show. That has been on the list for a while. And, like, I know I'll never read something as crazy as, like, fucking Blood Meridian or, like, The Road or none of the Cormac McCarthy stuff, but, like, this was the best example of horrifying fiction that I could think of. I know everyone probably remembers me reading Guts by Chuck Palahniuk, but that story is only as terrifying as it is, like, the human experience of, like, shame and guilt and sexual guilt and more so sexual shame and how we live our lives, like, holding these things in and never really quite sharing them with anyone. Like, we all got that carrot under our bed. Like, we've all been there. We all understand that. I don't think it's possible for us to understand something like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. There's an element of fear we should all understand that's becoming clearer to me as I think about it, but it's the idea of artificial intelligence. You know, something as bleak as the Judgment Day in Terminator, Skynet. Something about Skynet is very simplistic. It's, I'm just going to blow up the planet because humans are obsolete in nature, and they're just going to be, you know, an opposition to me when I try to, you know, cull resources. It's like Ultron. You know, Skynet is just another version of Ultron and just vis-a-vis, but no, there's something so much more fucked up about AM. I wasn't sure how to say it. It's capital A, capital M, so I didn't want to just say AM. I wanted to say AM, because I feel like that's how it's meant to be read, as an AM. It's terrifying to think that there might be a future like this, you know, in the multiverse and the cosmos of humanity. There's absolutely a universe where we created something that didn't just get rid of us, but experimented us and made us into something horrifying and new, and something so far removed from humanity that it's just monstrous in all forms. It's basically a fog-eyed, splotchy slug person. Like, that is terrifying. Keeping your brain, losing your body, you know, being turned into something else, like, for something else's amusement, as revenge for trying to cling to what humanity you have left. The only humanity you have left is your mind. Everything else has been stripped away from you. There's so many different elements of that throughout the story, but it doesn't like come to until the ending, and it's with that last line, "and I have no mouth but I must scream," that you're just like, damn. At least I am. I don't want to project, I don't want to force opinions on anyone, but I hope everyone out there can let out like a collective deep sigh into the word damn with me. Yeah, no, I liked all 4 of those stories. They all hit different aspects of what it means to be afraid of something. Like, you know, there's a Edgar Allan Poe's like madness and, you know, fear that even knowing someone and having someone care for you, you know, they could just go mad and fucking murder you. That's great. It's classic. It's psycho. You know, it's as homicidal as it comes. And then you have something like the lottery, and you're reminded that society at any point can just, you know, Hunger Games instill rules and tell you that you might have to like fucking stone your wife to death in front of your village someday. Yeah, it's fucked, but you know, the can't help but feel like you know, the healthcare system sometimes. It's like, well, whose day is it to get kicked out and get stoned to death today? So let's figure it out. Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates. That one might stick with me for a while, but I think it sticks with me the same way like the Zodiac Killer does, which is this reminder that like doesn't matter what you have, doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what you're capable of or what you think you're capable of. It's like The Strangers, like I said, it's like just this mortality, like it can be snuffed out so fucking quickly. Someone can just roll up into your driveway one day and just have the impression to kill you. I think it's worse. The story is certainly worse than just that notion. Like, the strangers just want to murder you. They get, you know, whatever little pleasure out of killing you. That's their thing. But the fact that Arnold Friend is very much so in it for the grape, yeah, that takes it to a whole new fucked up level, I think. And maybe I'll never understand it. I mean, I understand elements of it. Human ability to empathize and sympathize. I get it. But I'll never, like, get it, I don't think. Not the same way a woman would. And I'm not gonna pretend to. That's a lot. That's a lot to handle, and it definitely makes it worse. Because where are you going? Where have you been? When you think where are you going, you think to the future, you daydream, you think about what's in front of you. Where have you been? That's the past, you know. That's how you were brought up, how you were raised. It's very quickly that can turn on a dime. That you come to realize, like, oh, I'm about to die. Where am I going? I'm going to die. Where have I been? Well, that's my entire life. That's my, I'm going to flash back. I'm going to see my entire life before my eyes, right before I clock out, type of thing. I think it's even worse. Like, the title is cool, but I think the story's even worse because the choice is completely removed from someone like Connie. Like, Arnold has such a suave way of saying this is how it's going to happen whether you like it or not, so we can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way. And I think there's a lot of people out there that would say, fuck you, I'm going to do it the hardest way I can because I'm not going to, you know, I refuse to not take a swing before I go down. But, like, I also think that there's a large majority of humanity that just says shit like that, and very much so would take the easy way out, which in this way I can't help but think that it's some, you know, Gacy, Bundy shit, it's some Dahmer shit, you know, like, this dude's gonna take Connie away in the car, he's gonna have his way with her, and he's gonna kill her, and he's gonna throw her body into a ditch. And that's just, I guess in the 60s, 70s, that was easier to, you know, harder to be afraid of, or easier to be afraid of, I suppose, harder to get away with now. Harder to be afraid of now, but that doesn't remove the personal amount of fear someone might have about the topic. I think it's a pretty generalized fear that a lot of people have. I think it's a fear we have for our family, for our siblings, for our children. And that's the same with the lottery. The lottery is a very familial fear. It's the fear that just any day the system will describe, you know, it'll say, you know, today's not just your day, it's your wife's day, and you're gonna have to sit there and watch it. It's very scary. It's all very scary. All these stories were really fucking good, and I could see why people all over the internet were like, you gotta read these. Like, some of the best short stories of all time, some of the best fiction, some of the best horror short stories of all time, and the only one that really went above and beyond, like, trying to be horror was the last one. And even then, it has a very sophisticated way of doing it. It doesn't just say, oh, a robot took over humanity, a machine took over humanity, and then I had to kill my friends, and then it turned me into a slug. Like, it is all of that, but it's so much more nuanced than that. It's so much more like the way the story is told, the way the exposition is delivered as the narrative is going on is just masterclass fucking short story work. You don't know what's going on with AM. You know, you just get little pieces of it throughout the story while they're trying to get to where they're going. What a tortured fucking existence. I love that. I honestly, I'm gonna save this episode. I don't listen to a lot of my solo episodes. I think Feed the Pig is probably my favorite, and now I'm starting to see a lot of similarities between Feed the Pig and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. There's definitely a kind of, there's more of an optimistic view with Feed the Pig. Feed the Pig's more of a, maybe you'll come out the other side still kind of intact. And this one is very much so, no, fuck it, there is no intact. This is, we are dissembled. I'm going to save this one. I'm going to come back to this one. I'm going to listen to those stories again sometime. And I hope other people do too. I hope this is the first time a lot of people have heard some of these stories. I know something like Poe is read in schools, maybe not anymore. It was when I was in school, when I was in elementary school. So Poe, I think I read, had to have been between 7th, 8th, 9th grade, somewhere in there. Had to have been, because it's not hard. Poe is not hard to read. It's more about the prose of reading it and of how the structure of things were back then. But I don't think a lot of people have heard these other stories. I think these stories are very much niche for a reason. And I hope that me reading them here has brought this to the forefront of people and you know, there's a new audience for this type of stuff now, because now they've heard some of the most fucked up stories we've ever covered on this show, and these are by prolific, timeless authors. It's amazing stuff. It's gonna stay with me for a while. Oh, by the way, we're gonna have a break for a little bit. I'm not gonna put out the 300th for a bit. There's gonna be some other stuff, but let this episode carry you until we're back in spooky season. We'll be back in October. So everyone have a good rest of your summer. Maybe I'll put out like a Let's Play or two or some videos or stuff on the YouTube. Definitely stay subscribed on the YouTube if you want to be up to date with all that stuff. Another shout out to Barbara Manatee. Go check out our Patreon. I mean, honestly, I'm not asking for anything, but if you throw a couple bucks at me, at least then I'll feel more, I guess I'll feel more inclined to put some stuff up there, some exclusive stuff up there from stuff I've recorded, stuff I've done, but just haven't posted. So if I get a couple more people, I'll think about it, but at some point, it might end up on the YouTube anyway. So that's why I say stay subscribed to the YouTube. Stay subscribed to the SoundCloud. Anyone who's listening on SoundCloud, I pay for SoundCloud, so I want people to listen on SoundCloud. But I know a lot of you are on Spotify. Please subscribe, follow, whatever the fuck. Just listen however you listen. Give me thumbs ups, likes, whatever, wherever you can. Shout out to Patreon, shout out to Coffee, shout out to Redbubble. All the things we do to get by. Shout out to all my fans, shout out to all my people, shout out to my crew. We'll see you soon.